Report. I'm your host, Private Investigator Ed Opperman. Every Friday night, 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, and simulcast on CJ Mars Radio and 365 Live. And tonight, for the first time, we are live on the Opperman Report Spreaker channel, broadcasting to you live, direct from our own broadcasting little hub in the world here, my own, whatever you call it. Okay, coming up next week, Thursday nights, we're going to be on shakeandwake.com at 6:30 p.m., and my daughter Vic's going to be on there as well on Saturday afternoon. So I really want to take my hat off to Rick and Annie over at shakeandwake.com for their debut broadcast tonight. God bless them. And I can't wait to hear what's going on over there. Okay, hey, just got a note from good old Nighthawk from Revolution Radio, and he wants to remind me, like I'm going to forget. I'm going to forget something, right? That I got a memory like an elephant. Revolution Radio is under attack. They're having a lot of problems over there. Their YouTube channel was shut down by YouTube. They think it has to do with some kind of broadcasting of some police channels. Live police channels over there going on in Ferguson, Missouri. So the new... hey, can everybody mute up? Because I can hear you typing. Their new YouTube channel is Revolution Radio number 2. It's all one word solid, Revolution Radio number 2. And that'll be the new Revolution Radio YouTube channel. So everybody has to go there, and they got to hook up with that. Revolution Radio 2 on YouTube, and that should get you there. Okay, and you got to subscribe, okay, because that's where everything's going to be from now on, okay? Now, let's see, back to our show. What do we got here? We got my notes. I never forget my notes. Okay, you can also find my shows on the Opperman Report YouTube channel. Might as well mention that, right? Spreaker.com, and soon to be iHeartRadio. We should be on iHeartRadio in 2 weeks. Okay, so everybody keep an eye out for that. Don't forget, this is a listener-sponsored station. FreedomSlips.com is listener-sponsored. We have no corporate sponsorship, so if you like what you hear, you got to go to FreedomSlips.com and click on the donate button to keep that station afloat and keep them running and keep them up and going. Okay, tonight we have a big guest. We have Hart Fisher from the Hart Attack. And this guy is an outrageous, I hate to call him an outrageous character, but he really sort of is, you know. I've been looking him up. And we found Hart from Kif Davis, who's our producer, who's our man on the street, who's our guy out there confronting people on the street over there in Portland, Oregon. And we found Hart Fisher through Kif Davis, who's going to be joining us later on. But Hart Fisher is a fascinating guy. I've been looking up his YouTube channels. The guy's a mixed martial artist. He's a radio host, owns his own horror movie production company. Unbelievable guy. He's been on Jerry Springer. You know, this guy's been out there and done stuff. Hey, Hart, are you there?
Oh, yeah, I'm here. I'm damn glad to be here, Ed.
Hey, man, thank you so much for coming on. So can you tell the audience about yourself a little bit and about your background, what you're doing now?
Well, people have seen me most recently in the Nat Geo special on the 90s. The 90s, the last great decade. And I was on there talking about my comic book that I'd done about Jeffrey Dahmer. That was my first claim to fame. I was a comic book publisher and a prominent First Amendment advocate. And I have been the publisher of the only cartoonist in America to go to jail for his artwork, Michael Diana. And also I have some of my work is banned in Oklahoma as obscene material when I did it for Danzig's comic book company, The Rock Guy Danzig, with A Taste of Cherry and Veronica number 4, which I co-wrote with Christian Moore. And now I am doing a horror channel. I own American Horrors, which is the world's only 24 hours, 7 days a week, completely free to watch worldwide horror channel. It's currently streaming at filmon.com, and they have over 600 channels, and they're free to watch. And then I do a radio show, Hart Attack, with Josh Hadley, and I've had Keith on there several times, because Keith is a sharp guy, and I've really been happy to get to know Keith. He's got his facts straight, and he's right on the front lines fighting the pedophiles in our government.
Oh, yeah, he's an actual hero of mine, let me tell you. Because here's a guy that puts his butt on the line and goes out there in the street and puts his butt where his mouth is. And he goes in front of the city council, you know, and confronts the mayor.
I know exactly what that's like. I've been doing the same thing here in Los Angeles. I've been part of the team that defeated the Hollywood Millennium Project, in which these real estate developers are trying to build a tower on an active fault line that is so dangerous that it would have split the building in half. And City Hall here in Los Angeles is completely bought and paid for by corporate interests, especially interests like Goldman Sachs has been buying up LA City bonds. And I've been covering the beat with criminal justice in what's happening with our politicians and how they're bought out by minority groups like these corporations and other groups that are like trying to game the system. And so I'm recognized around City Hall in Los Angeles. There's a particular City Hall councilman that I really have tied horns with named Jose Huizar, who's building a poison park right now in Highland Park. This guy, you got to love this guy. This guy is breaking his arm, patting himself on the back. He's already got one autistic child. He has another child with leukemia. And now he's creating a park that is built on a gas station. And it is toxic earth. And the city has not cleaned it up. And they're spending about $3 million to make a park that's all toxic, that's going to be dangerous for children. And this guy can't wait to congratulate him on this stuff. So these are the kinds of issues that are important to me. I'm a backyard politics guy, and I also talk about your politics on the main stage.
Amazing. You know, my producer, Ann, is an architect, you know, and she's probably doing a backflip right now hearing about the story you're telling us, this construction thing.
Oh, it's horrible, Ed. This guy, Jose Huizar, has been behind a housing development in which City Hall has given out fire code waivers. How do you like this? They're giving waivers to fire code safety laws, and they're giving waivers to earthquake safety laws, and waivers to environmental impact studies on these giant construction projects happening here where I live in Highland Park. And right now there's a shooting going on. They've been trying to sell Highland Park as some kind of, they paid off the LA Times to say our local street is the hippest street in LA. And they paid off the LA Weekly to say we have the best neighborhood for a family to live in, when we're number 3 in crime per capita. There was a shooting just before I came on the air, like half a mile from my house, and the homicide rate is going through the roof. But since Obama went to college at Occidental College down the street, the real estate people are trying to redevelop everything at a crushing pace in Highland Park.
Wow, that's incredible, man.
And so this is what I'm fighting. This is what I'm fighting, Ed. This is what I'm known for at City Hall, is about making, and these are family homes that they're trying to build with fire code violations already in the building plans. And then they've got an issue where they're trying to build these buildings on toxic land. They were parking lots that have been designated specifically for parking because they're toxic. They've been in the automobile industry there, and they've got, you know, decades and decades and decades of toxic trippings from cars. And you're going to build friendly housing there? It's called the Highland Park Transit Village, and these are the kinds of things I got involved in fighting and getting involved in local politics here in Highland Park.
Do you like organize demonstrations, or you just talk about it on the radio show?
Well, talk about it on the radio show, and at first it was just a matter of I started doing Hart Attack as therapy so I could yell and scream about the things that were bothering me. But then we found that through the power of the radio show, we actually were able to help some people. I helped a friend of mine save her house from a predatory bank that was trying to steal her home. We helped another friend get her money back from a bank where she wasn't even a Verizon customer, and Verizon illegally pulled money out of her account. And the bank was dilly-dallying about getting her money back until we got involved, when we started calling them up. And that's my bent, is populist politics, you know. Things like we got to take care of our veterans. We have a society of constant castration of men. We have a society in which I have to worry about what word I say instead of being more focused on how I communicate my message. What's my message? And instead I got to worry about what naughty word I say. And those are the kind of things I'm involved in with the radio. When you ask me what do, I organize people. I'm really good at putting together a group of people. I've been flown out to Tokyo to give a lecture on team building and leadership.
Okay, so hey, how can we hear the Hart Attack?
Hart Attack is on it's on jackaloperadio.com, and you can also get the episodes at 1201beyond.com, and then you can find us on, I believe it's soundstream.com.
Stream? Oh, okay, Soundstream. Okay, I'm not sure which one that is. Okay.
Or SoundCloud.
SoundCloud, yeah, SoundCloud, definitely. Yeah, that's one of the big ones.
That's it.
Yeah.
We're up on SoundCloud.com, and we've had amazing guests. We had on Captain Anderson, Captain Young, who is a 33 police veteran, who came on our program to talk about how these ghost bike lanes they're throwing up everywhere have actually really hurt traffic. They have increased police response times. They've made things more dangerous for emergency responders. You have a 1% of the road users are gaming the system, and $3 million has been spent for a nonprofit group out of Virginia to push these bike lanes into neighborhoods where they don't belong, into streets they don't belong, like Class 2 highways. And here in town, it's a no-bid contract, and it started at $40,000 a mile, and now it's $85,000 a mile to put paint on the street.
Oh, wow, so that's a great deal.
Yeah, I'm really involved in corruption. I'm interested in political corruption, where tax dollars are being misspent. Things like I'm working in entertainment, and I can tell you with all certainty that the Obama administration was disgusting in the fact that they blew $300 million on a website that didn't work. When we know that it's not a video site, it's not streaming video. It doesn't take $300 million to make a website, guys. You don't even need $1 million to make a website.
That's pretty much it. It's an order form, basically. Now, when can people hear your show live? And do you take callers?
We go live on Saturday nights. We really don't take callers because we record during the week as if live.
Okay.
And I record with my co-host Josh Hadley, who does a show called, well, I can't say it on the air, What the F. Okay. And his show, I started off as a segment on there, being the angry, yelly guy. You bastards! How could you do this? And I got involved in politics. I started going to neighborhood council meetings, and I started organizing people and getting people to talk and just trying to get them so they're not so angry. What I see the man doing and the government doing and corporations doing is they're all getting us to fight each other. Yeah. They're getting men to fight with women. They're getting women to go after the men. They're getting the minorities to fight with the white folks to fight with these folks. And while we're all fighting amongst ourselves, they're buying out our politicians, they're buying out our law system, and they're ruining the country.
Hey, that reminds me real quick. I want to give a shout-out to one of our old guests, a member of the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense, the original Black Panther Party, Lorenza Kumbawa Irvin, who is organizing right now, coming up on Monday. It's called an informational picket line against police brutality in Memphis, Tennessee. It's on Monday, August 18th, 9 a.m. to 11 a.m., and it's in front of 201 Poplar, Memphis Police Headquarters. And if you want to get a hold of Lorenzo, it's organize.the.hood@gmail.com. And the link is up on my Opperman Report Facebook page if you want to check that out. So now,
I'd like to check that out. That sounds pretty cool.
He's a great guest, too, man. That's fascinating, man. He hijacked a plane to Cuba, and instead of that, they put him in prison for 15 years. But there was such an activism that they got him out after 15 years. They gave him 2 life sentences, and he got out in 15 years. Fascinating guy.
Wow, that sounds like a story I want to hear.
Yeah, great guy, too, man. He's 70 years old, and he's still out there organizing, like yourself,
Well, a big part of it is you got to keep your head. If you're going to be politically active, they're going to try to get you mad. They're going to try to bully you. Dealing with this, I call it the 1%er ghost bike lane issue that hijacked the streets of my neighborhood and created gridlock. It's driven businesses under. As I've gotten involved, I've been cyber trolled, cyber bullied. Someone has taken a crap on my car. There's somebody vandalizing my automobile. They have been sabotaging the car and messing with the speedometer. Other people that have been involved have been harassed and have had vandalism happen to them. An editor of the local paper, he had his tire knifed by, these ghost bike lane activists. And it's really interesting how you think something's a simple thing, but then you find out that the same tactics that are used by corporations on a large scale, like the trolling that's happening online with paid political trolls that are going after net neutrality on behalf of AT&T and Verizon and others of that ilk, you're finding you really are having more and more of a hard time figuring out who's a real person online, who's a real supporter, because they go on and they have sock puppets. And the sock puppets are fake personalities that one person is paid to operate for a political cause. And I've been seeing that happen a lot in my neighborhood, and it seems like they're doing it over big issues like the BP oil spill or police brutality, all the way down to freaking bike lane.
Yeah, but like you said, what you said was like $85,000 a mile.
Yeah, in Oregon, it costs $5,000 a mile.
Yes,
so
see?
you tell me, where's the kickback? And then the company that got the bid, it's a no-bid contract. And if you've worked for the state or you've worked for the city, you understand that most city contracts and state contracts, there's a bidding system, and it goes to the lowest bidder. So when you see these insider deals and you see the money going up, in 6 months, it went from $40,000 a mile to $85,000.
Yeah, but like when you got that kind of money, obviously that's a big business, and they're going to want to shut you up, and they have a budget to go after you,
And they really have. They've got paid political opponents that these pundits, the gentleman who operates a thing called the Boulevard Sentinel has been harassed relentlessly. It's one of the reasons I got involved in the game. I didn't like the way I saw old folks being bullied. It really was a lot of ageism, a lot of anti-handicap sentiment. This whole issue with these bike lanes. The bike lanes are nice, but they're not a real form of transportation. And it's easier for the man to control you if you're on a bike. If I get kicked out of my house, I have shelter in my car. I can drive someplace. I can get out of the city. When you're on a bike, you're on a leash. There's no shelter there. I've never heard of a dude getting laid on his bike. It doesn't work that way. Why are they pushing this agenda on us to make us more easily controlled, to remove things from us that can help our lives, and to create gridlock? Here in Los Angeles, it's happening all over the city, and it's even hurt their number one industry, filmmaking, because they've been putting down like these green lanes. They're losing money in this town. A lot of jobs are disappearing. Bike lanes for 1% of the riders on the road. What's the agenda here? I'd love to know. I'd like to know, what is the plan? Why are they trying to force us onto bicycles?
That's really interesting you would bring that up, because there's this new thing in New York where they have these parked cars that you could go and you could like rent them for a little tiny trip, so that people don't have to own cars. Are you familiar with this? Yeah. And there's like two big giant companies that are doing this. And you're right. Why would they want to encourage something like that, to take away our cars? Well, you're right. When you get homeless, you can go live in your car.
Yeah, and not only that, but everybody has injuries. I do martial arts, and I tweak my knee, I tweak out my ankle, I've broken a rib, I've had my wrist broken, I've broken a bone in my hand. So you're injured. You're not going to be able to go. It's really elitist and healthist, because not everybody can get on a bike. My wife's a cancer survivor, and one of her legs is swollen up twice its normal size because she's fighting an issue with lymph collection from losing some of her lymph nodes in her torso. So for her, the idea of she can't even get on a bike and ride around, and these people are creating traffic jams in the area. And what they've done also is they have made it more dangerous for emergency responders. The fire department has come out against these plans. The police department has come out against these plans. So why is City Hall pushing it when the residents have come out against it? And they kept trying to sneak them in. So I use the bike lane issue as an example of how the system works, how the nuts and bolts go together, how you're being manipulated, how they're doing the game, because they're using the same game for a bike lane that they're doing to make the garbage contracts all open up, so now you can have cronyism on your garbage contracts. We're seeing this corruption happen nationwide. Our country isn't broke. It's completely corrupt and raided. The government won't even investigate Medicare fraud unless you've stolen $500,000.
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah. There's plenty of money.
There's money. It's just
stolen. Yeah,
it's being ripped off. And you get involved in investigations. We have a guy that worked with Hart Attack and with American Horrors named Fred Wolf, who's an interrogations expert and was a PI and was a cop in L.A. And, he taught me quite a bit about how things work.
Oh, yeah. It's really corrupt out there. And as long as you're in with the club, you can get away with this kind of stuff. But
and also, you threw a shout-out. I'm going to throw a shout-out to Burl Barr, who hosts True Crimes Uncensored. And Burl Barr and Don Waldman are two guys in the true crime world that they walk a lot of your beat, Ed, and they cover a lot of interesting topics, and they got me involved in true crime.
Oh, well, yeah, well, good. Put me in touch with them. We'll bring them on the show.
Yeah, Burl's a great, amazing true crime writer. I urge people to look him up, B-A-R-E-R, Burl Barr. And, hell, I can't believe I'm on your show. I'm really happy to be on here because I feel like it's guys like us that have to talk, because the mainstream media, is bought out. I'm a guy who's been on the talk shows. I've been on Larry King, Sally Jesse, Jerry Springer. I've been in Time Magazine, Tattooed Savage. I've been on Discovery Channel's The Verminators. I've been on Eon OJ. I've been on all these shows, and I've been bought and sold in many different ways. I've been on CNN Headline News. I've been in documentary Murder by Numbers. I'm in a new documentary right now called Serial Killer Culture, all about true crime culture. So I've been involved in these, and I'm very aware of how these stories are manipulated and have a point. There's a propaganda point to what Time Magazine is writing. Why is Time Magazine promoting Hillary Clinton? Hillary Clinton is a dead horse in the race. I was at a party and found out that the people throwing the party had worked in financing Obama's campaign, and they were all talking about Hillary. And I thought, how out of touch are you people with regular Americans? Hillary is a no-win, and she is a horrendous person to even consider as a presidential candidate. Look how she handled Benghazi. She folded under pressure. You need to be questioned. Oh, I fell and hit my head, so therefore, poor me, little lady, I'm not going to have to testify. Are you kidding me? This is a court of law, lady. You got to testify.
Well,
You're not above the law.
Are you one of those people that believe there's a difference between the Republican Party and the Democratic Party?
No, I don't. I used to, but I can see, especially in the last Democrat National Convention and the last Republican Convention, when they showed the old mayor of L.A., Antonio Villagrosa, who cheated on his wife multiple times, while mayor. And he came on and they did the whole thing about the policy of supporting Israel. And they said, all who are in favor of this party platform and support our policies with Israel, go yay. Crickets. Then they go, everybody again, say nay. And they all hear this roar, nay, nay. And then he goes, okay, the yays have it. Yeah. This is on YouTube. People can watch this. Then they show the same thing at the Republican National Committee. Same thing. Everybody who's for our stance on Israel, say yay. Crickets. Nothing. Then they go, everybody opposed, say nay. Nay! A roar of nays. And then they go, okay, the yays have it. That tells you right there, they're bought and paid for. All of our politicians are bought and paid for. Look at Bobby Jindal in Louisiana giving BP a free pass. We have families. Our service members live in Louisiana. We have Navy guys living in Louisiana, and they're unable to sue BP for their oil spill. They're unable to go to court and collect their revenues due for the damages to their property and their towns and their homes. But Bobby Jindal just automatically gives them a get-out-of-jail-free card when nobody even asked. Who's bought and paid for? It's right in our faces.
Oh, yeah. I had Cynthia McKinney on my show a couple of times. And, and I was asking, I says, how do they approach you? How do they pay you off? How does it work, And she goes, oh, well, Israel, the Israeli lobby, they send over a fax, and you just have to sign the bottom, and they say they'll support you and send you all this money as long as you agree to support everything they want. It's not even like they take you out to dinner and they get you drunk first, man. They send over a fax, and you just sign it, and you're in.
Oh, yeah. I've been involved in this whole net neutrality battle because it's important to us, you as a broadcaster, Ed, me as a broadcaster. I have my horror channel online so I could hit the widest possible audience I could and make it free. That's one of the things I like about FilmOn.com. Film On is owned by crazy billionaire Alki David. Alki has been trying to burst into the American market, but they've locked him out. All of our major channels are owned by 6 major corporations. Yeah. And so Alki is a rabble-rouser, and he is a gentleman backed with a lot of money. He has lawsuits with Fox. He has lawsuits with CBS pointing out their hypocrisies. And so he's locked out, and it's all about money. They don't want him making this service so we can communicate with each other, so guys like me can have a channel and compete with FearNet. My number one competition in horror went off the air July 31st. So I'm dancing on air. I'm happy. I don't have any competition in that world. And I went into the politics because I was going to do a news channel on American horrors, but the news stories were so horrible, so frightening, it was distracting from the horror films.
The audience couldn't take it.
You can imagine that.
It's too horrifying.
It was too horrifying. So that's why I went to the radio, and we have just found that they're trying to lock it up. They want to control political speech. So it's very important for guys like you and I to be fighting to keep net neutrality, to keep They want to make it so rich people have a fast pipeline and poor people got a slow pipeline.
Okay, wait.
Does that
We
sound
got about
good
5
to you,
minutes
Ed?
before the break. Explain to people what net neutrality is.
Net neutrality is a policy by our government and by the world involving the web in which they say everyone will have equal access to the web, meaning that a giant corporation like AT&T, or let's say Comcast, which owns NBC Universal. Comcast held up Netflix and said, hey, you guys got to pay us more money or else, gee, your Netflix on demand is going to get bogged down if they're on our Comcast internet system. So now they're creating a separate taxation of Netflix. Netflix's properties should be equally able to be streamed as Hulu because Comcast had an interest in Hulu. So without net neutrality, Hulu can get a higher priority in the pipeline than Netflix will. And so they're holding everybody up and making them pay. Why? Because people are canceling their cable. Because cable sucks right now. These channels stink. They're doing reality TV on every channel because they don't have to pay the writers. It's all a cheap money grab and power grab. So the net neutrality makes it even for us. It makes it even for everybody so that Ed Oppenheimer's show is streamed at the same rate as Huffington Post.
Right.
Does that make sense?
It does.
And what they want to do to net neutrality is they want to throw it away. And they want to turn it into a fast lane and a slow lane. And people with money get the fast lane. And people with no money, well, they get the bitter end of the stick, don't they?
Yeah, already even, I got like the lowest bandwidth package available, man. I can barely afford that. Just to keep that floating.
Well, they want to make it hard for us to talk to each other. We're in a position where we're able to talk about politics. We as humanity have never been able to talk to each other like this. And that's why the corporations have created sock puppets. It's why they've created these cyber trolls, paid trolls. Like in the net neutrality argument, there's a writer at Vice magazine, and Vice has been writing about the net neutrality issue. And so there are people that are paid to go in the comments section and tell you they're aping the talking points of AT&T or Verizon, but they don't let the public know that they're paid to say these things. So the public thinks, oh man, maybe I should rethink my position about this. Oh man, gosh, maybe I should rethink my position about what they're saying because this person's, there's obviously a lot more people saying these negative things than these positive things, but they're really just paid fake people. There's a woman named Miss High she admitted, I'm being paid by the broadband industry as a consultant, but I'm not getting paid to do public appearances or anything like that. No, not at all. That's just, I'm just going on for myself. I'm on your show. No one's paying me. I'm here to get an agenda across, to discuss what is happening in my country that's bothering me. That's why I'm here. No one's paying me. I'm here because I love America and I want it to be a better place.
I hear you, bro. I hear you. Now, how did you first get, because you were talking about all this stuff, how you got on Jerry Springer and all that kind of stuff like that. Now, that's how you first got famous, right?
Yeah, I was a kid. I'd just gotten out of college, and I was at the University of Illinois. I'd just gotten a degree in art, and my final year of school, I started my comic book company, Boneyard Press. And I was a horror fan back then, and my life was pretty violent. Horror has helped me to deal with the real-life violence I've dealt with. I've had murder, rape, all kinds of horrible shit happen in my life. I grew up on the south side of Chicago. If you're a fan of the show Gangland, you would know more episodes are set in Chicago than any other city, at least by 3-1.
So, and a Boneyard Press, is that still in existence?
No, I got out of comics in 2004. I started publishing books, and I started my company with a book called Dark Angel and a character called Bill the Bull. And it was about, Dark Angel was about a serial killer from his own point of view. Before there was ever a Dexter, I was doing that.
Oh, very
And Bill the Bull was like a half-man, half-thug, alcoholic guy for hire in Chicago. And so the comics started, and then I did a book on Jeffrey Dahmer, a bio book.
That was it.
And yeah, that was the big one. That hit. A reporter in Milwaukee, you got to love this douchebag. This guy went to the store, he bought the comic book, then he went to the victims' families' homes, and he ambush interviewed them with the book at their front doors. Yeah, a real prince there. Now, my book condemns the media and condemns how the mass media has portrayed serial killers and condemns specifically how they packaged and sold Jeffrey Dahmer. So they turned around and made it me. I was an honor roll kid. I was a kid who went to a super smart high school. I got a degree in art, and they portrayed me as a Satan-worshipping thug, and I'm more of an agnostic than anything, and I think the devil's for losers. So that's how I ended up. I ended up on these talk shows, and I found that the only way for me to defend my reputation and for me to defend myself from the lies being told about me and my work was to go on the talk shows. I would go on the E channels for the entertainment news, and they do their wrap up. And I was on the E channel, and what these guys would do is they would edit. They go, what is it that horror people like about Boneyard Press? And I'll give them an answer. Then they'll take that answer from that question, and on the air they make it seem like, what is it that people like about the Jeffrey Dahmer comic book? And so now it's not a true answer. They're manipulating it so that they could get what they want, which is to create a stir. And there was a protest march on my home. The victim's family sued me. I went forward, and I had lots of problems in the comic industry. This really affected my personal life. My mother worked for the Department of Public Aid, and it affected her job. It affected her ability to do her job, all because some TV people wanted to sell more orange juice. And I nailed Sally Jesse Raphael with that simple fact within a minute and a half of being on her show, which got me kicked off of doing Donahue.
Well, let me ask you this. Now, at one point, you did lose one of these lawsuits, right, where they wanted to auction off your possessions in your apartment?
No, not my apartment. I lived in a house at that point in time, the last house on the right. And I was living there with some roommates, and so I initially lost the lawsuit because my lawyer, well, first off, I lost the suit because the judge didn't like the fact that I came representing myself. If I could tell anybody at home anything, never yourself in court. Ever. I got screwed. Every time I've been in court and I didn't have proper legal representation, I got hammered. Every time I've been in court with proper legal representation, I have triumphed. Because I beat Marvel Comics in a court of law over copyright and trademark infringement.
Yeah, these judges, they like to see their friends out there getting work,
This judge was pissed off at me, so he ruled for the defendants. He made me pay them $1,500 in order to be able to reopen the case and bring a lawyer back. At the time, I had just gotten out of college. I had a degree in art. I didn't really have any money. And so what these victims' families had done in this ambulance-chasing lawyer, they decided that they're going to win. They're going to set a legal precedent with a small publisher with no money so they could go for the big publishers with the real money. Unfortunately, they picked the wrong guy from the south side of Chicago. If you start running on the south side of Chicago, you're going to run for the rest of your life. So you learn how to stand your ground. You learn how to stand up for yourself no matter what the strangers say on the sideline. You got to be true to yourself and what you're really all about.
All right, great, man. Listen, we're going to take a little break now, okay? We're with Hart Fisher, the host of Hart Attack, which is an online radio show. You can find it on SoundCloud. He's also the owner and operator of American Horrors, his own film company. When we get back, I want to get into this whole thing about some of these shows, like, because you were on Jerry Springer,
Yep.
And like how they're scripted. I want to get into the whole thing, man. How they bring in there, they kind of seduce you to come in. And
I would love to talk about that, Ed.
Yeah,
I would love to break it down for you because I've broken it down in the past, and actually I have a video on YouTube from my Sally Jesse Raphael appearance where I break down a fight that happened and how the producers made the fight happen and how it didn't show up on the air. So, yeah, I'm dying to talk about that.
Definitely want to get into all that. So we're going to have a nice little break here. So I'm going to read some commercials. First of all, I just want to remind everybody that the Revolution Radio YouTube channel is down, and their new channel is called Revolution Radio 2, and that's at www.youtube.com/user/Revolution Radio 2. And how you're going to find that is you go to YouTube and you can search for Freedom Slips Rev Radio, and that should bring you to it and get there. I'm going to have a link on my blog, The Opperman Report, and that's how you can subscribe to that. There's already 42 subscribers, so they're actually they're getting some traffic over there. And don't forget, if you want to support freedomslips.com, you got to go to freedomslips.com. Go find the donate button and donate, because I understand they're struggling for money over there. Let's see. Tonight's show is brought to you by Pacific West Bamboo. Everybody knows Amanda over Pacific West Bamboo, 503-839-8126. They're your number one source for timber construction and craft-grade bamboo poles, plants, products. They specialize in eco-friendly reclaimed wood products for the home and garden. They're located in Portland, Oregon, where our man Kif Davis holds court. And they're servicing the Northwest for over 10 years. They can be reached at 503-839-8126. Their Facebook page is Pacific West Bamboo. Their email is demroots@oppermail.com, and they can and do ship nationwide. I was chatting with Amanda earlier today, and they're talking about making beer out of bamboo. They can make beer out of bamboo, and she's looking into that. So who knows what'll come from that. Okay, and then we got Mike Gray over at infinityhomeplans.com. Mike Gray's a great guy, a great supporter of the show, and you can check out Infinity Home Plans and Design Services, your resource for 3D and 2D draftsman services. They offer a multitude of products, including stock home plans, 2D digital drawing sets, 3D models and renderings, and more. That's Mike Gray over at infinityhomeplans.com. Okay, now, my next sponsor, is this really cool group of women down in Mexico. Fascinating. I got some new ad copy. Our new sponsor is a jewelry production cooperative of village women in the southern Mexican state of Guerrero. For the most part, the family members of these women are in the United States in the status of illegal workers, and they have now published a book of authentic handwritten letters addressed to their husbands, their brothers, their fathers, their uncles, their boyfriends. These passionate letters have been translated to English so everybody can get a feeling for who these people really are. Maybe it will be surprising to some listeners that in every letter, in one way or another, begs the loved ones to come back to Mexico. This state in Mexico, Guerrero, is there's only 3 million people who live there, and out of that, 800,000 of the citizens of this state in Mexico live in the United States as illegal aliens. And they send their money back over there to support this little state there in Mexico. And these women, they have a website. It's Revolucion Mexicana. Okay, first of all, Revolucion is spelled with a C. Revolucion. Then it's dash Mexicana. Then it's .mx. Then it's /wetback-world. Okay, now that's what they made. I don't mean to insult these people, but that's the website they created. And you can go to this website. Okay, it's a free new website. And if you follow the links on that website, you can order their book from Amazon. They've written a book called A New World Mexican Women, and it's about how to make Mexican jewelry, and about their book that these women have written to really beg their husbands and their grandfathers and their brothers and sons to come back to Mexico after working over there in the United States. Okay, don't forget emailrevealer.com. Okay, emailrevealer.com. If you need to locate somebody, you need an asset search investigation, you need to, you suspect your spouse is cheating online, you go to emailrevealer.com, and we can trace their email address back to online dating websites and catch them cheating online. But tonight we have Hart from the Hart Attack report, a mixed martial artist, owner of this horror film company here. What's it called again? It is called American Horrors, and it's a free film channel. You can watch it on FilmOns.com, and you can find them over there. And it's a free horror. What do you have? You have your own film crew?
Well, essentially what we are is American Horrors is a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week horror television channel. It was my wet dream as a kid growing up. You know, I always wanted to have my very own horror channel. It's one of those things like you wish you could program your favorite films, and now I have that. We've been on the air for over 3 years, and straight up, we are the best horror channel on the air. And when I mean a horror channel, it's a TV channel. Just like you turn on WGN or you turn on HBO, we're just like that. We have feature films, we have music videos, we have short horror films, and we have our own in-house generated programming. Like we have our own paranormal investigation show coming to our airwaves in the fall, Mission Motion Terror. We've got a really cool movie review show, Fright Asylum, with Woody Mex, who I think is the best horror review guy on the air. And we have True Crimes with Burl Barr getting ready to come up on a second season. We have the American Horrors TV show. We have, Angela's Trailer Park. We got a lot of great stuff on the network, really, and we really focus on like VHS horror because I'm really bored with women tortured in a basement. I'm not interested in that.
I hate that.
Saw's kind of boring for me.
Yeah. Just
people getting carved up. It's just boring. I like real horror films with suspense, and I like all kinds of horror. We got a really good horror host show called Saturday Fright Special that's pretty cool with Scare Wolf on Saturdays. So basically what we are is we're the horror channel that you turn on and you leave on all day if you're a fan. And you can watch us for free on your iPhone, your iPad, your PC, and we just opened up our airwaves to commercials, but our films are not broken up by commercials, and that's filmon.com. Go down to filmon.com and watch now.
There you go. And we have a link to that on the Opperman Report blog. Okay, now tell us, now you go and you start this Jeffrey Dahmer comic book, right? And then they start bringing you on these shows. Now what happened? The bookers were contacting you, or you went out and you contacted them? Bring us through the whole process.
Well, the whole process was very strange because I didn't expect anything to happen. I mean, I'm just a guy out of college. I was a bouncer at a bar called Mabel's. You know, I'm teaching Taekwondo. I just got out of college with my art degree, and I'm living the dream doing comic books. And a friend of mine suggested I do the Dahmer book, and I thought, okay, that's a good idea. And I did the research, and I did the book, and I didn't think twice about it. And all of a sudden, the news media got involved, and they created a sensation. And all of a sudden, I became a product for them to buy and sell, and that's what they did. They marketed and sold me. So when the lawsuit went against me, beforehand, I was evil guy making a profit off of the emotions of poor victims' families. And then it turned into artist loses his right to publish. You know, like they changed it around. Freedom fighter. And whatever suited their media needs to sell newspapers and to get ratings was how they portrayed me. And so first it started with newspapers, and it started with local news. And as I had an uncompromising point of view and I refused to apologize, all these candy boys running around, Andrew Dice Clay, I'm a nice guy, why does every hate me? Because I make mean jokes. Lose your audience. Then you get James when he cheats on his girl. All of a sudden he's crying like a baby on the air and he loses all his credibility. I'm the real thing. So I'm like, no, I didn't do anything wrong. You're not getting any apologies out of me. In fact, you guys are douchebags. And I'm going to pay for my legal fees by doing more Dahmer books. So my answer to them was, you want to harass me? You want to destroy my reputation on TV? Okay, fine. Now we're doing the further adventure of young Jeffrey Dahmer with his buddy Danny Quayle. Now we're doing Dahmer Zombie Squad. Now we're doing Jeffrey Dahmer versus Jesus Christ, the most offensive slugfest in the history of comics. And so I went for it, and I went after them too. I didn't take any crap. And I didn't just sit there and, oh, gee, why are you picking on me? Well, that's not where I'm from. So I went right back at them. And the talk shows just start booking you. They just start calling you up. They saw you on somebody else, you know. So first it was a closer look with Faith Daniels. That was the first one. And then it was a miserable experience. This experience is miserable. You're put on there as a gladiator. And then by the time I got onto Springer, you saw the machine full motion. You know, you knew that they had their talking points. I was the official bad guy. They have plants in the audience. They have producers in the audience of these shows that lead the applause. And then I was winning the audience over with my argument. When I'm on Springer, people can see this on YouTube. You can see it on my spot where it's youtube.com/crime pays Hart, and that's HART. And I've got my talk show appearances up there. And for the Springer show, one, they put my supporters behind, like almost behind the stage so the camera couldn't see them. Two, when I started winning over the audience with actual logic, oh, imagine that, logic. They turned down the applause in the mix when the show went on the air. Like when I went on Sally Jesse Raphael, I eviscerated that woman within a minute and a half of getting on the air and threw her hypocrisy in her face. They cleaned that up in the edit room as best. Hilarious. Because they're telling me that I'm evil and I'm making all this money off these victims' families. I said, no, I'm not. I'm doing a comic book. I'm going to get a $19 per comic. I sold 4,000 copies of the first printing. I sold 10,000 copies of the second print. Ooh, big money there. Look out. So I said, hey, you're doing this right now. You're making these people cry on the air live. You're hurting them live so you can sell more orange juice. I work for a corporation, was her answer. So therefore, it's okay. What was her literal answer on the air? It's hilarious. I've got that on YouTube, too. Hello?
Yeah, Sally Jesse Raphael was saying that?
Yeah, she was saying that. Her mouth was wide open. It looked like a fish out of water. She was like, da, for a good 45 seconds. It was hilarious. And then seeing them, they cut it down so it didn't look like she was a stammering fool. That was hilarious. Larry King, though, was really well balanced. Larry King was cool. The Ian and OJ people were very high-handed. There you have a woman who, on the air, she asked me, the host, sitting next to a stack of National Enquirers that were 2 feet high. I told her I researched my OJ books. I did books on OJ, Doing Time with OJ and OJ's Big Bust Out. We did books on OJ, and she's going, well, how did you research this? And I said, I researched this by reading magazine and Newsweek and going to the library. She laughed at me, and she said, you read? Like, really? Really? I'm supposed to be some kind of an idiot that doesn't read because I have long hair? The worst kind of politically motivated dude is a politically motivated metalhead, let me tell you.
Hey, let me ask this. But now, when you, let's say, Jerry Springer, right? When you're in the green room, are you there by yourself?
Well, here we were. When we were on Sally Jesse, they had a woman who was supposed to be getting married to Richard Ramirez, the serial killer. And then they had a little 16-year-old hot little girly. And this chick was this white trash broad, this trailer trash, peroxide blonde, looks like she'd been in some rumbles in a gang fight. They put them right next to each other, and this little girl is taunting this grown trailer trash. And we're in the green room, me and another guy who was doing serial killer trading cards out of New York, and we're just sitting there watching this because you're in the green room and you're watching the show while it's unfolding. And they're amping you up. They're telling you, stick to your point of view. You know, make sure you stand up for yourself. Right. They want to brawl, and they're pushing for it. And so this woman beat the crap out of this kid, and the father of the child was sitting in the audience and didn't do anything. He had a big smile on his face while his daughter's getting punched in the face.
Right, so you were
which to me I thought was really sick.
You were on one of the shows where they were punching each other.
Yeah, one of them. And this was early enough in the game where Sally didn't put it on the air.
Okay.
She was very high-handed about it. And it's like, how can you be high-handed when you engineered that confrontation? You set it up. You had people that made that happen. And when the woman came to our green room who did the beating, like she came in the green room and she got paid like $10,000 to be there. Wow. I'm not paid to be there. The other guy's not paid to be there, but she got paid like $10,000. And we're telling her, look, you just beat up a minor. You assaulted and battered a minor on camera. You better get out of here. And she looked at us like, oh no. And she did. She got her stuff together and she got her check and she ran out of there. Because I was like, you got to get out of here. You assaulted and battered a minor on camera. You got to go. You got to run. And the other guy's going, oh, yeah, you got to get out of here. And she did. She bailed, you know. These people at these shows, like I was on one called something with Bertice Berry, and she was a black comedian. And the show it was about Gacy and stuff. And, you know, these people bring me on thinking I'm pro-serial killer, and I'm not. Right. I am been a victim of violent crime. I've been mugged. I've been beaten up. I've had stalkers. I've had death threats. I've had loved ones murdered. No, I hate serial killers. They're garbage. I can't stand pedophiles. Even worse than garbage. So I'm not into that. But they would bring me on to these shows as if I was, because they wanted me to be. And then I would turn the tables on them every time. It was fun. I enjoyed it. Because those idiots only know what's on the cue card, Ed. When you go on the show, they do a pre-interview. And so the talking head host only knows what's on the cue card. So it's really easy to set these fools up.
Nowadays, like, to go on these shows, they pay about $1,000, you know, for the guests to come on. They fly to New York and stuff like that. But like,
not that I'm aware of. I've never been paid to be on any show, Ed.
Oh, yeah, go on. There's websites you can go on and look for auditions. They're all over. Even on Craigslist, if you go in the talent section on Craigslist. This is nowadays. But like on these shows, Maury, they're pumping you up in the back, saying you can jump up and get in their face, and you can get in their face. So they're pumping these guests, and a lot of them they cast these shows out of the ghettos too, as well. By the way,
Well, back in the '90s, I was a crazy guy.
Yeah.
During the making of my first film, The Garbage Man, and part of all this stuff that happened, my girlfriend was raped and murdered in a motel robbery.
Yeah, tell us about that story. What happened with that?
This is when I'm in the middle of all the Dahmer controversy. I'm living in Champaign, Illinois, and I was making a horror film called The Garbage Man, which is about a black serial killer, and it's very much like Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer from John McNaughton. And we shot it on 16mm film, and in the middle of shooting, my girlfriend, who I love very dearly, and I miss her to this day, she was raped and murdered in a robbery at the motel. My father was staying there, and he was the last person to talk to her alive before she got killed. And so it turned into a bit of a media crap storm, and I refused. I talked to the media long enough to get the killer caught, and I have spent, all the while I've been maligned as some kind of evil horror guy, I'm the guy who spent 10 years fighting to put a killer in jail. 3 different murder trials. He almost out the second time. And it was hard work getting him and keeping him in prison, because the justice system doesn't really care about justice. The justice system doesn't really care that much about the victims. It's all get him in, get it going, because the only reason my case had 2 other trials is because the Illinois Supreme Court decided to make it a test case.
So, like, your girlfriend was staying at this motel, and it was like a random act of...
She was the night auditor.
Okay.
She was the night auditor at a charter house inn, and so she wasn't supposed to really be dealing with the public, and there was a gentleman in there who had robbed the motel 2 weeks beforehand. And so she had just gotten back from vacation. She just moved in with me. She needed a job. My buddy had worked at the hotel for almost a year. So he was making the film with me. She went and took his job as the night auditor. And this killer kicked through 2 doors. People left her as a sitting duck. I felt terrible about this because she told me she felt safe, but she wasn't. The people that owned the charter house inn, they disconnected her safety net. They disconnected the security camera. The panic button on the floor was disconnected. The panic button you were supposed to wear around her neck was in the manager's desk drawer, locked away. So she was a sitting duck, and this guy kicked through and made it through 2 doors. And raped her and shot her with a shotgun, killed her.
Try. Oh my God. Okay. Oh my God, that's horrible. Okay.
So I went off the deep end after that. I lost my mind, and I went crazy. Throughout the '90s, I was known as the most dangerous man in comics because I was unhinged. I really was. The murder, because I had 2 other girlfriends raped before then, and one had been put in the hospital. One had been raped by a coworker. Another had been stalked and put in the hospital and nearly killed. And then my girlfriend, Michelle, was raped and murdered. So I lost it. I cracked. And the murder trials kept me crazy because you couldn't get on with your life. Every time I thought I was going to be able to get on with my life and put it behind me, another murder trial would show up. And it wasn't until the beginning of 2001 that we finished the last one. And then that bastard governor, I can't remember, it was Governor Ryan, one of the governors of Illinois, to distract from his corruption and his crimes, gave everybody on death row a life sentence. So now I got to worry about this guy getting out because he has a history of violence. He stabbed a guard in the face. And this is what my book is about. I actually had been writing for, I met Burl Barr. I wrote for a true crime blog called In Cold Blog. And they brought me on to write about First Amendment issues, but instead this poured out of me all about her murder and about what happened with the trials. And also, in the middle of doing these murder trials, I'm being demonized on national TV. I would go on Jerry Springer, and there'd be people in the audience saying, the victims' families, on the commercial break, I'm glad she's dead. I hope it hurt. I hope she died slow. And they were doing that to try to get me to freak out on the commercial break. Yeah. How'd you like that one, Ed? Did you enjoy that one?
You got me, man. That's really because I watched some of those Jerry Springer stuff like that, and you did look upset. Now that I think back about it, and the whole thing did seem like a.
So I kept it private, Ed. I didn't talk about her murder. I didn't talk about the real life violence in my life. I was under fire from the press, especially after the Taste of Cherry. A book called Little Image, where I killed the founders of Image Comics, and they were terrified I was going to come kill them. Dummies. I did the Howard Stern versus Rush Limbaugh book. I did Rush Limbaugh Must Die. I
Oh,
faked
really?
my
That's
death.
your book?
Yeah, I did Rush Limbaugh Must Die, the comic book. Yeah.
Okay. Hey,
She gave me a thumbs up on the air.
really? And now, are these comic books or are any of these books on like, Amazon?
You can find them on Amazon. These books were all printed in the 90s. I have copies, so if people want to get, the Howard Stern versus Rush Limbaugh book, I have copies available from the original printings in 1998, available at AmericanHorrors.com/store.
Oh, boy. We are back with the Opperman Report every Friday night, 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, and simulcast on cjmarsradio.com and B65 Live. Tonight, for the first time, we're on our own Spreaker channel, the Opperman Report, Spreaker channel. We got coming up the next couple of weeks, we got some big guests. We got Ward Churchill's coming up, that college professor in Colorado over there who had all that big problems when he brought out his opinions about September 11th. And he's going to be talking about some books he's written. We're going to get into, I'm going to do like 10 shows with this guy because he's written all these books about the Baader-Meinhof gang and the Red Army faction in Germany. And so we're going to get into all of that. And Cohen's helped on a lot of stuff. I can hear somebody breathing. I think it's Cindy. Probably. Okay.
Oh, it's muted.
Okay, all right. Okay, let's see. And tonight we got with us Hart Fisher from Hart Attack, American Horrors at filmon.com, and you can hear the Hart Attack at jackaloperadio.com or soundcloud.com. And it's also on 1201beyond.com or iTunes. So the guy's pretty much everywhere. He was also telling us during the break that he's in a new movie, 2035, Forbidden Dimensions. He plays a bounty hunter that beats the hero. So we'll get into Dog the Bounty Hunter and the chase he's doing after this mixed martial arts guy coming up. Then he's also telling us that he's acting in a new horror film called The Orphan Killer 2 with Ronda Rousey as one of the stars, and she's in that movie Expendables 3 that opens today. So that's pretty interesting stuff. Got a lot of stuff going on here with Hart Fisher from Hart Attack that you can find out on jackaloperadio.com. Hey, Hart, you there?
Yeah, I'm doing great. Can you hear me?
Yeah, was that you breathing?
It might have been. I'm a heavy breather.
Yeah, dude, man, you make me nervous.
I'm 6'2". I'm 230 pounds. I've been doing martial arts since 1987, and I got hair down to my feet. I'm a big, hairy man.
Yeah, I've seen the hair, man. I've seen the hair. But now, hey, what do you think about this story with this guy, this mixed martial arts guy that beat up the porn star here in Vegas, man? Do you know that guy?
I don't know him. I mean, I know a lot of people. I want to give a shout out to Gokor Chivichian and Jean LaBelle. They're actually where I met Ronda Rousey, and I got to meet her mother and work with her mother, Dr. Anne Maria Mars, who is doing 7 Generation Games, which is a new video game that's designed to help teach Indians on the reservations math. And so I've been working with her and doing voiceover work on the game. I help them hit their Kickstarter goals. And so I just want to give a quick shout out to Gokor. If anybody wants to train in MMA, he's got one of the best dojos in the world. A lot of fighters fight there. If you're a UFC fan, you've seen Gegard Mousasi fight, you've seen Carl Parisian fight, you've seen Manny Gambier on The Ultimate Fighter. These guys are all there. They all train there. I've known a lot of these guys for a long time, especially Carl and Manny, and of course a good friend of mine. So go check out Gokor.com, and if you want to train. He's amazing.
Very cool. Okay, so then you still fight?
I just train for myself. I've never been a professional fighter. I always felt that it wasn't worth the damage to my body to entertain a bunch of idiots who don't care about me.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
No,
I wouldn't grind my body up. I know a lot of professional fighters, and plus, that world's tough. That's emotionally tough. Forget about just getting in there and taking a beating. It's emotionally a difficult thing to be involved in professional MMA. It really is. Especially watching Ronda get her crown and being around her as she's risen up and watching her rise. And hey, I hope Expendables 3 kicks butt today. I get to be in this horror film, The Orphan Killer 2, and she's in it. And a bunch of MMA people in it. This serial killer slasher is killing MMA people because they're a challenge, and he's a true predator.
Ah, very cool.
Yeah, and it's fun. That's one of the great things about living out here in Los Angeles. I'm a film freak, a movie freak, and I'm lucky enough to get to live out my dreams and get to do what I love with American horrors and do a horror channel and make horror films. I'm a lucky guy.
I hear you, man. You know, I don't know how old you are. I'm 53 years old, but
45, baby, 45, and I'm getting younger every day because sin loves you.
well, 45. Now listen, come see me in a few years. But the thing is,
right?
To be creative, man, be able to create things, you know, and art, and you know, the film, you know, it's the way to go. You know, it keeps you young.
Even the radio show, I didn't know how much I would fall in love with doing radio until Josh invited me to do like a segment on his What the F show, and I love it. I mean, don't you like being on the air, Ed? Isn't it great being able to like affect people's lives and to do something?
Dude, I really do love it, you know, and I'm just learning. The show's not even a year old, you know, and
wow.
Yeah, and I'm loving every minute of it, you know, and you get to meet the most exciting, interesting people in the world. You know?
Yeah, you really do, and you learn a lot. I mean, just from having the show, I've gotten to have some incredible guests on, and I've learned so much more. And also, from getting involved in local politics, I've gotten to know all the business owners of my local stores. I've made new friends. So, sure, I dealt with vandalism, I dealt with some bullying, but the friendships were far more important and far better than anything that happened in the negative.
Let me ask you a question. Now, you're a serial killer guy, right? You've been studying serial killers for a long time, and you have an interest in this, right? Are you familiar with the work of Dave McGowan?
No, I'm not.
Dave McGowan wrote these fascinating books. He wrote the book Programmed to Kill. And he also wrote the book Weird Scenes Inside the Canyon, right? Now, I've had him on quite a few times, and he's really very popular right now. He's rising very quickly. Now, he said to me, he goes, "Hey, Ed, man, have you noticed that there's no more serial killers?"
Well, there are, but nobody's made an impression. I think that court TV and the 24-hour news cycle and the internet have destroyed the superstar serial killer notion. They're not new anymore, you know? Ted Bundy in his day shocked audiences, and Manson shocked audiences in his day, and Ed Gein in his day. But now with the nonstop carnage that you see on YouTube, that you see from terrorist groups, that you see from drug gangs, that you see in your own neighborhood, and also the rise of shock TV. Like, I'm a Jackass fan, but I'm really glad I didn't grow up with that as a kid. Because these crazy kids that are doing stunts, instead of competing with the local crazy kid in your neighborhood, you're competing with the crazy kid from Bali or the crazy kid from some slum in Russia. And so we're in a different age where, man, people are just wrecking themselves and destroying themselves for nothing. Yeah,
but the thing is, like, they used to be where they gave them like a fancy name, you know, like the Night Stalker and all this.
Well, here we got the Grim Sleeper in L.A.
Oh, you have one right now?
Well, there's a guy who was a black serial killer who was patrolling, you know, he was taking his victims from the black neighborhoods, and we know that traditionally law enforcement has kind of ignored the poorer people. Not ignored, but, you know, they don't take priority. They don't have a voice. They can't lean on a politician and make him squeal, you know. Here in Highland Park, because of what they've done with the ghost bike lanes and delaying police response times, the homicide rate has gone up in our neighborhood. Violent crimes have gone up in our neighborhood, all because of some hoity-toity idea for 1% of the population, this perfect utopian idea. And in the real world, people are dying, and people are getting hit by cars, and people are getting hurt. And so, I don't know, man. I've lost my train of thought.
Hey, okay, but I got a question for you. It's going to throw you up even more. Because now you're in the comic book world, right? Now, what about these guys like Phoenix Jones, these guys that are running around L.A. like dressed up as superheroes, crime fighters, you know, and fighting crime? Have you run across any of them guys or done anything with that?
I've never personally run into that, but it makes me laugh because I'm like, man, what a sad, desperate guy. Really?
Well,
your job is going to be to dress up like Superman in front of the Chinese theater, and you're going to be confused enough? I mean, I am a guy who has stopped muggings. I am a guy who has, like, heard someone scream and jumped up, ran over, and did something about it. I'm that guy. But I grew up with comic books and this hero idea. It's part of my martial arts training. It's part of being a big gentleman, and being a bouncer. You learn that you have some responsibility, and we as citizens have some responsibility, and we need to get up off our butts, forget about the Domino's pizza. Nobody cares if Miley Cyrus is twerking for some other rock star. It's all BS while the corporations crush us under their thumbs.
Hey, you know what? I want to bring in Keith.
Yeah, let's talk to Keith. I want to find out what's going down in Portland. Do you watch the program National Geographic, like drugs, where they talk about the business of drugs, and they did a whole thing on Portland that was pretty brutal.
No, I didn't catch that one. No, what was it?
It's a show called Drugs Inc., and I really feel like this is a company owned by News Corp, owned by Rupert Murdoch, and so I feel a lot of times in these shows they're almost like commercials for drug use.
I totally agree with you.
And I feel like they're talking, oh, the high is so good. No, it's not. Oh, the Robitussin high is so good. Got to get that Robitussin. No, you don't. It's a garbage drug for garbage people. These drugs are garbage, and the way it's rotting out our country. What is wrong with us that we need to have all these prescription drugs? What's wrong with our country where we need all these pills, where we need these Monster energy drinks? Why are 16-year-old boys running around with a Monster energy drink? They should have more energy than anybody can deal with at that age.
That's so true. And you notice how it's the 16-year-old girls are running around with the Starbucks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's garbage coffee. It's not even good coffee.
It's not even good, yeah.
It's crap. I'm like, what are you guys talking about? This is garbage coffee, and you're paying $5 for your chai latte BS.
Okay, I'm going to try and bring Keith in, but I might lose everybody. So, guys, stand by. I'm going to try. I might. But it'll only
I'm drowning. Ed, no!
It'll only take a couple of seconds to get you back. So let's see what happens. Okay, 1, 2, 3, go. Add to group. You guys still there? Oh, I think I got it. Everybody still there?
I'm here.
Hey, we did it, man. We did it. Okay, great.
All right. Let's get that little evil man on here.
Yeah, you know what, man? I love Kif Davis. He's a producer for the show. And a real hero of mine. You know, like I said, because he's a guy, you know, with a history. He books these incredible guest for us, like Hart Fisher. Hey, Keith, you there?
Yep, how's it going, man?
Hey, man, how are you? Say hi to Hart.
Now the big silence while we all crash in and talk over each other.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, so Keith,
So
man.
how's it going, everyone?
It's going
great.
good, bro. So listen, we're on with Hart Fisher and Kif Davis. So Keith, why don't you introduce yourself to the audience? I talk about you all the time. But tell the Opperman Report about yourself, a little bit about your history, even your mom, if you want to talk about that kind of stuff.
Right on. I've just kind of grown up in a countercultural family. I was actually almost born in a Moroccan prison because my mom got busted with some keef, which is the way I got my name, Kif Davis. And for all the people out there that don't know what keef is, it's the powder substance off the marijuana plants that they press into hashish. And when she was pregnant with me in the late 60s, she brought some keef down from the Reef Mountains in Morocco to her hotel in Marrakesh in Morocco with my dad. And then the entire hotel got raided because a lot of hippies and hash dealers were living in the hotel, so they went door to door basically and asked if my mom had anything to declare. And my parents actually had about 2 kilos worth of stuff, but my mom just brought about an ounce or 2 and gave it to them, so they didn't search the rest of the room. And basically, I would have probably been born in a Moroccan prison if it wasn't for her quick thinking and the fact that she pulled some Jedi mind tricks on them. And basically, they had her locked up for a couple days, and then they just basically let her go because they felt sympathetic towards her. Unlike the American justice system, they basically were a little more sympathetic to her, you know. So
how many years ago was that?
And that was in 1969 when that happened, and I was born in 1970.
Yeah, because even then, a couple of kilos, you couldn't really make a living off that kind of... what, were they bringing it back to the States?
No, they were just... they just went to the Reef Mountains, which is pretty much like the outlaw outlaw growing area of Morocco, where basically like the police and the military and people like that don't even go into because it's such a outlaw region where they pretty much just like stay out of there and let the tribal people grow weed and get away with it, basically, you know.
So then you came to the States. What happened then?
My parents used to have head shops in the 60s and early 70s and stuff, and then my parents' head shop was actually burned down by it was in Ocean City, New Jersey, and they had a head shop called the Birdcage, and it was actually burned down by the son of the chief of police and the son of the mayor. So basically, I've kind of grown up in an environment where my family has been harassed and made bankrupt, different times throughout their life and stuff, and including like in the early 90s, and we got a little weed sent from California, me and my mom, and then the police raided our house dressed as UPS people, just like basically how the whole Waco standoff happened too, was UPS tipped them off, and so definitely UPS is definitely linked in with the federal government a lot. So a
lot of people don't know.
Definitely don't send it that way.
Keith, a lot of people don't know that FedEx and UPS actually are handling a great deal of America's mail in rural areas, and they take on quite a bit for the government that nobody talks about.
Yep, and I'm sure they make a lot of money off of people's properties and stuff that get forfeited because of drugs and different things too, you know.
Yeah, and also packages that go missing.
Don't you think the TSA is all about catching drug smuggling and has nothing to do with terrorism?
Yeah, and basically just screwing with people more than anything else, you know, and because they haven't really caught any terrorists as far as I know, you know. Seems like most of the terrorists slip by, and a lot of them are actually aided by federal agencies and stuff like that, like the shoe bomber guy and all that other stuff. You know,
yeah, the underwear bomber, it seems like he was escorted on the plane.
Oh, well, when you look at somebody like Johnson & Johnson had a policy where they were bribing doctors to prescribe drugs to people who didn't need it, specifically drugs for old folks and for people that were pregnant, and fatalities resulted. And instead of dealing with prosecuting the corporation of Johnson & Johnson or the doctors involved in this payola scandal, they took a bribe of, $2.2 billion.
When was that?
That was just recently. That was this year.
I didn't even catch that one, man.
This is the thing I'm all over on Hart Attack. I'm all about corporations like Walgreens and the various CVS have all been busted for illegally selling pain-killing medication out the back door. But instead of having the people that sold the pain med out the back being arrested, which is what you're supposed to do, they merely pay a bribe to the government and it gets swept under the gloves. But somebody like Keith's mom is involved in the drug trade and medical marijuana and marijuana period, and she gets arrested, harassed, and her life destroyed.
Yeah, Keith, is your mom still alive?
Basically, she was just a consumer for medical conditions and stuff, and that's pretty much, and I was a consumer for kind of medical stuff too, but also recreational, but my mom had MS and stuff, so I kind of got her back on smoking weed because she was having a lot of problems and stuff, and it actually helped her out a lot with MS and stuff.
Is your mom still alive now?
No, she's been dead for about a little over 10 years, and my dad died about 11 years ago too.
Sorry to hear that, brother.
Yeah.
Well, Keith, tell us, what are you doing now, man? Like,
I do
You're
a
like
lot
on
of
a mission,
stuff
right?
at City Hall, and I've been, talking a lot about how there's basically little to no actual budget given to fight against child sex trafficking in Portland, and we're basically like number one, or in the number one to number two.
You really opened up my mind. Keith, you opened up my mind about pedophilia in Portland and how entrenched it is, and how it seems that there are people in the government that are protecting and hiding these pedophiles. You really opened up my eyes, especially about Portland. There was one point where my wife and I, we don't necessarily always love everything about living in Los Angeles, and we have looked at a couple places where we might move or move our business, and Portland was someplace I was looking at until I got to know you and started hearing about what's really going on behind the scenes. And then I saw the Drugs Inc. Special on Portland, and then I'm like, wow, do I really want to go to this place?
Yeah, it's pretty corrupt here. It's got a long history of human trafficking, child sex trafficking, drugs, corrupt government. Like the former mayor, Sam Adams, was involved with a sexual relationship with a 17-year-old, and he didn't get impeached or lose his job or anything. And also Neil Goldschmidt, who was the former Oregon governor and also a mayor of Portland, he got busted for having sex with a 14-year-old. So, and also recently I just saw this thing where the Multnomah County, which is Portland and a couple other places around here, like Gresham and a couple other cities locally, they were saying how they just passed some local legislation to fight against people who pick up underage prostitutes, and they said that now they're going to make it a felony. Well, it probably should have already been a felony, and they're all giving themselves like pats on the back for that, and how they passed this legislation recently. But I was reading the article, and it said that these people are going to get like 30 days in jail. So basically you can pick up an underage prostitute, have sex with her, get busted by the police, and the only thing you're going to get out of it is 30 days in jail around here, which is totally ridiculous. Should be more like 30 years maybe.
Yeah, but did you guys know...
Hey, how are you doing, Keith? I know you were in the hospital. You had an issue with one of your lungs. How are you doing, man?
Yeah, I had a little operation. I actually had a collapsed lung, and my lung collapsed like 20%. So I had an operation done, and they drained a bunch of fluid out, and I've been doing pretty good ever since that. It was like I was basically in the hospital for a week, and I've been doing okay, but I am currently homeless, and I've been homeless for quite a while now, since February of this year. So,
well, Keith, wait a second. Why don't you give out your PayPal account? And a lot of people...
Where can people help you?
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that want to help you, Keith. You know, I know a lot of the supporters at Hart Attack. Folks on the Opperman Report, he's been a guest on Hart Attack several times. He's been getting better every time he comes on the show. And he was introduced to me by Adam Air Williams, a prominent underground cartoonist. Where can people go to help you out, Keith? Where can people donate some money to you at PayPal?
I actually need to set up a PayPal account, but I was going to do that probably within the next week or two, and I do have a bank account. But if people wanted to get in contact with me, they could get in touch with me through like Facebook or whatever. It's Kif Davis in Portland, Oregon.
Well, I tell you what, guys. In the meantime, if you want to donate to Kif, you can donate to the Opperman Report at gmail.com PayPal account. Okay, Opperman Report, gmail.com. And just put Kif on a Kif. Okay, and I'll make sure he gets it. And then once you get set up a PayPal account, we'll do something next week too, because people have to understand that almost all the guests we've had on here, I'd say a good 60-70% of the guests have come through the work of Kif Davis, who does all this research. He found Hart Fisher tonight, recommended Ward Churchill, and just all these guests we've had. The people love the show so much. And Kif is a big part of the show and a big help for us here. So anything we do for him to keep him, get him indoors, And,
I've known a little bit more about Keith from knowing his friend Adam. And I could say, Keith doesn't talk about, he's been through a lot of bad stuff, guys. He's a guy who's been on the front lines. He's put himself at risk with Cop Watch. Many, many years. This is not new for Keith. He's been involved in this his whole life. And so there's things about Keith and his past and what's been done to him, been done to his family, that are pretty deep, dark, and brutal. There's a reason why you're homeless, Keith. You're dealing with a lot of I almost did it. A lot of effed up stuff that I know you just slide it under the table, but it's okay. You've dealt with some crazy, crazy stuff, man. And a lot of people that have contacted me about you, they're thinking about you. You're somebody that's out there in the public, so know that there's some people out there that care about you and want you to be better, want you to be healthy, and want you to have a good life, man.
Right on. Yep, I definitely have lived kind of a rough life, and I've had a lot of police repression and government harassment and all kinds of stuff. I've been beat up by the police for filming and stuff. Like, if you look up Kif Davis and just put the Portland Mercury, you can see that I was beat up by the police in 2003. Or if you just do a search for Pamela Snow White Davis and put in my name and the marijuana mama, you can see that, that my family's been under a lot of harassment for a long time.
And the government has no problem with that. Folks at home, I don't want you to think Keith is crazy, because he's not. There are still harassment programs by the government in place to this day. They are doing it. There are corporations that are paying people to harass people online and in life. This hasn't gone away. This isn't some conspiracy fantasy. These things are happening. And Keith has been a victim of this kind of organized harassment. You hear and you talk, COINTELPRO. But Keith is a guy who's been victimized by groups like that on behalf of the government. His family has been involved in trying to legalize marijuana for a very long time. So when Keith talks, this is a guy who's the real thing.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. So, Keith, what are you working on these days, man? What do you do, Yeah.
I'm actually writing a book about Portland right now and a lot of the corruption and a lot of different stuff, and hopefully I'll have that done within 9 months to a year or so. But it's going to have a lot of different stuff, because Portland's really got a pretty interesting and really corrupt history and stuff dating back to like the Shanghai era, when sailors were hit and shanghaied left and right and put on ships, and basically the police were involved in a lot of the shanghaiing going on in Portland, and like the British government at one point even said that they were going to stop letting British ships come to Portland because the epidemic of shanghaiing was so big here. We have like the Shanghai tunnels and a bunch of different stuff.
Keith,
like
let me
that.
tell folks at home, let me tell people what Shanghaiing means. Shanghaiing is like you're a guy in a bar, it's the turn of the century, and you're a dude drinking in a bar, and a trapdoor opens under you, you fall through a tunnel, and the next thing you know, you're now a human slave. You're now waking up on a boat. And this was a practice that was pretty big 100 years ago, and that's what Shanghaiing is. They grab you, and you woke up in Shanghai. I just wanted to let people know what that meant.
Yeah, basically, like maritime law back then, it pretty much basically made people that were sailors, basically had less rights than even slaves and stuff. So it was a real form of human slavery that went on for a long time. And my one friend actually does have a PayPal account that if you wanted to send money to him, he definitely would pass it on to me. And it's his name's Chad Patterson. He's one of my friends that I've had for a long time. But his PayPal account is angelsofdeath.com at gmail.com.
At Gmail?
But
I'm going to donate to Save Keith at angelsofdeath.com. Or angelsofdeath at gmail.com. That's fantastic, Keith. I love you, man.
Right on.
It's so true, you know?
Ay, ay, ay. Angels of Death. I'm dying.
Well, it's good we can all laugh with all the crap we've been through, because I know all three of us have had our share of different forms of torment through various things, from the government to different people and stuff, you know.
That's why we're here talking, Keith, because we're the guys who've done it. We've been there. We lived it. We're the real thing. We're the thing they're afraid of the most. We're the thing that these idiots on the internet hate the most. We're the real thing. We really did it.
We're still alive and talking and still doing it, you know.
Yeah, so far so good, you know. Hey, but like on an average day, though, because I've seen some of your videos, you confront people on the street. And you also go into like the city hall and stuff like that. Do you go to the city hall council meetings all the time? Do you hit every one? Or just once in a while?
Not everyone, but basically like I was talking about, that mayor of ours, former mayor Sam Adams, how he was a pedophile having sex with a 17-year-old. Yeah. He basically changed the whole way that the city council can be addressed in Portland, Oregon. Before, you know, you could just come in, sign up, and talk about various issues, but basically every week someone was coming in and talking about how he was a pedophile and how he was having sex with a 17-year-old and that he needed to be impeached, and there was a big impeachment campaign against him and stuff like that. So he basically changed the rules of how you can actually address city council, which is, you know, so he basically destroyed the democratic process to cover his own ass. And
that's not the only place it's happening, Keith. It's not the only place. It's happening here in Los Angeles at the Los Angeles City Hall. I've gone to City Hall meetings, and it's sickening. They are trying to restrict how you are able to communicate the political process. My favorite is when they're like, oh, you can't say anything unproductive. You can't say anything that's too mean. And it's like, hey, you guys are lying, stealing, and cheating and screwing over your constituents. What do you mean I can't come up here and express myself the way I want to express myself? It's a free country. They've been restricting how you approach City Hall, how you talk to your politicians, all over America. Like here, like most of the time, they give you a minute now. You have 1 minute, and if you ask a question, they don't even have to really answer you. I've caught these people at City Hall lying on numerous occasions. I have caught L. Dot lying at neighborhood council meetings, and you catch them, and then you ask them a question, and then they're going to answer you, and they don't actually. You're not even allowed to rebut and go, hey, you're not answering my question. You just talked until I lost my minute, and so now I don't get to redress the fact that you didn't answer my question, and now you're getting kicked out because you got thrown out by force of one of those Portland City Hall meetings recently.
Yep, that was when I brought up the fact that G4S Security, who are one of the biggest mercenary armies in the entire world, how they do security for the city of Portland, and they also do security for TriNet, which is the public transportation system, and they also run the Israeli torture.
Dude, I'm sorry to solder into you, Keith, but the thing that you blew my mind with is this security company's involved in making these torture dungeons in Israel for children. That's the thing that got me about this company.
Children get raped by these guys, and
Yeah.
Palestinian women are routinely raped, and children are routinely raped by G4S guards, and they put them in, put kids in solitary confinement, and then they shackle their hands and feet until they confessed, and half the time it's just for, like, throwing a stone at a tank, and that can carry a penalty of up to 20 years. So,
disgusting.
They're basically threatening these kids that they're going to sexually assault them or kill their family or hurt their family. And
while they're chained to the
also
floor.
are raping and sexually assaulting children and their parents and stuff like that, too. And it's really sickening. And these guys, G4S, they are doing this stuff all over the world. They're a huge mercenary army. A lot of people haven't really heard the name G4S, but they've heard the name Blackwater and other stuff. But
Keith, didn't Bill Gates buy part up of this G4 company? Didn't Bill Gates and Melinda Gates, supposedly altruistic foundation, buy up shares of this company?
Yeah, they actually did have a lot of money invested in G4S, and they recently got a lot of flack for that, so they recently divested in G4S within like the last 6 months or so, because a lot of people made a big stink about it. And also, BBC News, the British Broadcasting Corporation, they used to have G4S as their security, but through them, through all the G4S stuff being exposed in the media and protests against them and stuff, they have also canceled their contracts with G4S. And right now I'm doing the same thing, trying to get the city of Portland to cancel their contracts, and TriMet, which are the public transportation system. If you want to check out a really good documentary that touches on a lot of this, you could check out the Vice News documentary, and it's called Superpower for Hire: Rise of the Private Military, and it takes a good look into the shadow industry of mercenaries and private military companies like G4S and Blackwater, and how they really are, embedded into the system and doing a lot of security, and basically how they're taking, they basically go through and handpick a lot of their people straight from the Army. So a lot of the best and the brightest, or the best soldiers and stuff, are actually getting hired by G4S and Blackwater. And so it's basically like dumbing down the military too, and just turning these guys into just total mercenaries for hire and stuff,
Well, wait, can I tell you guys something?
I'm also trying to get the city to divest in HSBC, and HSBC were fined $1.9 billion for laundering money for Mexican drug cartels and Middle Eastern terrorist groups. And you could find some articles in Rolling Stones and Reuters, New York Times, Huffington Post, and other things detailing that. And there was a whistleblower who was working for HSBC, and his name is Everett Stern. You could find a bunch of different clips on YouTube and all over the internet about him. He's a former member of HSBC, and he was also a former United States congressional candidate, and he blew the whistle on the fact that HSBC were laundering money for Mexican drug cartels and terrorist groups. And actually, this last week, I went in front of City Hall and I confronted them about G4S and HSBC. And here in Portland, we really don't have that big of a murder rate. We have an average of about 30 murders a year, which is pretty small for a city the size of ours,
Oh, yeah, that's great.
But we do have about 90 to 100 drug overdoses, which are usually from heroin and Mexican heroin. So I talked in front of the city council this week, and I said, how can you guys do business with these guys who money launder for Mexican drug cartels? and these guys, because Mexican drug cartels not only involved in drug trafficking, they're involved in human trafficking, child sex trafficking, extortion, murder, kidnapping, all sorts of stuff. And they basically contribute to, addiction, suicides, all kinds of stuff that are related to drugs. People losing their job, people getting evicted because they spent all their money on heroin instead of paying the rent, and all kinds of stuff like that. So I asked the city council how they can do business with people like that and have a clear conscience, and I basically have called them out on their moral inconsistencies and said that, you guys need to drop your contracts with G4S and HSBC, and they basically look at me like I'm crazy. And I ask them, like, hey, can you guys got a response? Is any of this stuff I'm saying to you like sinking in? And they're just basically like, they won't answer me. They're like, oh, we're just here to listen to you. So
I've watched the videotape, man. I've watched the videotape, and I've actually been to my city hall meetings, and these guys freeze up like glacier blocks of ice. They just look at you like you're some kind of thing that arrived from another planet. Their conscience and their guilt is so on their face, yet hidden behind a mask. It's like right there in the room. They know what they're doing is wrong. They know what you're talking about is wrong, and the mask comes down, and they just sit there silently. You know why they're silent, Keith? They're silent because they have no reply to your truth.
Well, let me ask you, bro. Wait, Keith, when you come in, Keith, when you come in, do they recognize who you are and say, "Oh no, here he comes again"?
Oh yeah, if you go and look at this recent city council meeting that I went to, they actually saw that I was going to be on the roster talking about stuff. So they usually don't start their meetings off with like a whole set of rules. but when I'm on the roster, they like start saying, okay, you can't name names. Here's this other stuff that you can't do, and blah 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 blah. They see I'm coming, and they realize, like, well, we're going to try and silence this guy. And actually, it's not against city council rules to name names of convicted criminals, like the guy Ian Andrew Gilderson, who I've named a couple different times in City Hall.
Keith, I'm going to give you a tip for dealing with these guys. I'm going to give you a little tip for dealing with these guys. You know what's fun? You're going to have to start showing up. You put your name in to speak, then decline to speak. You start messing with them. You see, these guys are up there all day, every day, and we can mess with them. They work for us. We sign their paychecks. They are in power only to represent us, the citizens of America. That is their whole entire job. So it's time for you to start messing with them. Sign up to speak, hang out, videotape them. Don't talk. Do it several times. Start playing the Call and Tell pro games back on them, because they're easy. They're soft. They're bullies. They're nothing. They're bullies. They're easy to turn it on. So instead of you being the guy who speaks every time you sign up, show up. Sign up to speak. You don't have to speak. Then just let them be worried about you. And have other people start showing up to talk about what you want to talk about. You may sign up, and someone else will sign up too, and they're going to talk about what you're going to talk about, and you don't say anything. You just videotape it. You got to start tag teaming these people. You got to start organizing with your friends and whoever to start working them instead of letting them constantly change the rules on you.
I've actually tried to get other people to speak, but it seems like no one else wants to tackle the stuff.
It's hard. It's hard, man. Other journalists are a great place to start. Other reporters, mostly it's young people. Find people, and they don't have to go all the time. Bring them up once, maybe twice. We could even make a game of it. It could be a whole thing. We raise money on Kickstarter, so we're going to pay people to go to these meetings, and we're going to have our paid political activists.
Yep, kind of like the picket lines you see these days. A lot of them aren't actually there because they are supporting unions or this, that, or the other thing. They're actually hired through temp agencies that pay them to go out there with a picket sign. Like a lot of people see these guys holding signs for, union rights or this, that, or the other thing. But what they really don't realize is a lot of the time that there's only about 5 or 10 people that are actually there on their own free will, and a lot of the other people are there, like, hired by temp agencies by the unions. So it's pretty interesting.
We should start doing that.
Being a temp worker.
You know what, man, Keith and Ed and the listeners of the Opperman Report, we should start doing that. Why don't we do that? Why don't we take somebody and pay them $10 to get on the web for an hour once a week and troll people over these politics? Why don't we take the playbook from the people that are putting us under the ground, and why don't we turn it back on them?
Hey, not a bad idea, but real quick, guys, I got to read some ads before the show's over. I've been a little bit lacking in my responsibilities here.
That's a great show, Ed. It's a great show.
Thank you, my friend. Oh, no, listen, I mean, you guys are going to stay on, right? We're going to do an after show?
Heck yeah, as long as I got time to get another beer.
Yeah, me too. I know. Okay. Yeah, no, we got plenty of time. Okay, so name a couple of our sponsors here. Is Pacific West Bamboo. Brother, okay, let's see. Because I must have closed up my notes here. But I'll be real quick. Okay, here we go. Pacific West Bamboo. Oh, man. My sponsors is going to kill me tonight, guys. And I'm wasting less time.
Yep, they're located out here in the Portland area, and Amanda and Rob actually helped me out a good amount. Once I got out of the hospital, they let me stay at their house for a little while and paid for like 2 nights in a motel for me, too, so...
You can't beat that, man. Pacific West Bamboo, Amanda over there, Pacific West Bamboo, they can and do ship nationwide. Okay, here we go. Ta-da, got it. Okay, their number is 503-839-8126. You can reach them at demroots.com, and their Facebook page is called Pacific West Bamboo. And they're serving Portland, Oregon, but they can do ship nationwide. Then we also got Mike Gray at infinityhomeplans.com. Infinity Home your resource for 3D and 2D draftsman services. They offer a multitude of products, including stock home plans, 2D digital drawing sets, 3D models, and renderings, and more. And then don't forget, we got this, it's hard to describe, but their website is Revolucion, REVOLUCION.mx/wetback-world. Okay, and they have a book about their family and their loved ones back in the United States, and they have webinars about how to make authentic Mexican jewelry. And if you just Google modern Mexican women, you can find their websites and all their services that they're offering here. You got to work on that link though. There, the Mexican women. Okay, guys, we're here with Hart Fisher and Kif Davis. One thing I wanted to point out too is you were talking about before about Blackwater. Back in 2003, my partner was NYPD Harbor Aviation. He was a NYPD scuba cop. And one of the things he used to do to make money on the side was recruit guys for Blackwater, because they wanted guys that were former Navy SEALs and stuff like that. But the kind of guys they wanted were guys who got kicked off the police force, who had DUIs and had domestic violence charges. They wanted guys that had nothing to lose. Those are the kinds of guys they were looking for.
It makes them easy to control, Ed.
Absolutely.
You can kind of control them. They're desperate. They're always in trouble, so they always need a big daddy to bail them out. And also, they're going to do the effed up stuff that you want them to do, the stuff that requires lower moral standards. You know what?
Something, man, you're right on target, bro. Because one of the things I've always noticed is that when a bomb goes off in the Middle East, the value of oil that's pumped in Oklahoma or Texas rises. So if I owned an oil well or an oil company in Texas or Oklahoma, I would want bombs going off in the Middle East all the time. And if you had these kind of people working over there, they could kind of make that kind of thing happen.
Yeah. without a doubt. I mean, it's all a game that these guys are playing. Once you're alive for any length of time and you read, you just got to read it and follow the money, guys. It's not like these people are hiding it. They're not hiding it. It's right out in the open, you know.
Did you guys hear about the psyops that they were doing actually in during like the Iraq occupation? There was some congressmen that were coming to Iraq, so basically they went out and did a bunch of psyops to make it look like the war on terror was a lot worse than it was, and then they just had a bunch of their own soldiers going out in the desert blowing up things and shooting off guns, so it sounded like there's actually war going on.
Keith, when you've got 130,000 Americans dying from the prescription drugs that their doctor has prescribed to them, why don't you tell me who's the terrorist? Who's the real threat to America? Because how many people have died under terrorist acts in America? They certainly, when you take a look at 120,000, 130,000, 110,000, over the course of 5 years, we're talking about over 500,000 people killed by drug companies. But there's no militarization of our police to go after Johnson & Johnson, to go after Pfizer, to go after the drug companies that bought out and co-opt our government. There's nobody breaking in their doors. There's nobody kicking in. My father died from his prescription drugs. They killed him. They rotted out his guts. So do I have a personal fight in this? Yeah, I do. It's real personal. I miss my father. He was a great guy, and he'd be alive today if perhaps he could have smoked marijuana for his pain problems rather than taking the pills that killed him.
Hey, you know what, guys? We're down to the wait. Hold on. We're down to the last 3 or 4 minutes. So real quick, Keith, give that PayPal account one more time. We're gonna drop Revolution Radio in a few minutes, but we'll still be on CJMars.com, CJMarsRadio.com, and also Spreaker. But Keith, give your PayPal real quick.
Yep, it's my friend's PayPal, and it's angelsofdeath.com@gmail.com.
Okay, Hart, real quick, what do you want to promote?
You guys can find me on Twitter, Hart_Fisher. You can find me on Facebook, Facebook.com/Hart Attack Radio. Watch American Horrors for free at filmon.com. For those that have a hard time phonetically, that's FILMON.com.
Okay, good night, Revolution Radio. We love you. Don't forget, there's a new YouTube channel. I'll have the new link up on my blog, the Opperman Report. Don't forget, it's a listener-sponsored station. Go to freedomslips.com and click on the donate button. Good night. I'll see you next week. But we're still on CJ Mars Radio. Okay, welcome to the after show.
That was quick.
I know. Well, I'm going to get the hang of it. I'm going to kind of break it up on the Spreaker thing. Because it's the first night we're broadcasting live on Spreaker.
That's pretty cool, Ed. That's pretty cool. I'm on the first live broadcast of the Opperman Report. That's awesome.
Dude, thank you very much. And you know what? Would you be interested in playing your podcast on other stations?
Yeah, actually, I'm very interested in syndicating the show. You know, the guys at Jackalope have really backed me to the limit, and they're interested in, us building a big audience. And so that's what I'm all about. I want to reach as many people as possible. I work hard on my show, and I'm trying to get better every day. And in fact, if there's anybody interested in having us do more of a regular radio show like yours, on my show I curse like a sailor. I almost laid an F-bomb on your show, and I caught myself halfway through. I'm really proud.
You came close a few times,
But on Hart Attack, I'm like the yelly, angry guy. I'm not always the yelly, angry guy, but I'm trying to make a better show every week, just like I'm sure you are.
Yeah, we're trying to grow. Now I'm contacting all these new syndication networks and stuff like that. I'm working on deals to get on AM, FM radio stations as well. So things are really going to take off. If we had just like one big, really good sponsor that wanted to carry us to the next level, man, that would be the greatest thing on earth.
Dude, that's the hard part, because I don't know how many sponsors you've dealt with, but collecting your money from the sponsor is the hardest part, especially if it's a direct marketing sponsor. That's a nightmare. And yeah, I'm talking about the little brother of Mr. James Cameron, little Johnny Cameron. You owe me money, dude.
Oh, really?
Pay me. Yeah, I've had some issues with sponsors.
So, Ed, I heard that Revolution Radio just lost their YouTube channel. Did you know about that?
Yeah, you heard about that, huh? Their new channel is, I got it right here, to keep up with the Revolution Radio. It is, my computer's running really slow right now because it's Freedom Slips Rev Radio on YouTube. And if you search YouTube for that, otherwise it's on youtube.com, user Revolution Radio, then the number 2. Yeah, some kind of problems they're having over there. I just actually hired today the guy who does the YouTube channel for some of the biggest radio hosts and radio shows out there. Okay, I've become friends with some of these guys, some big stuff, you know. And he says he's going to triple my traffic. And so once I can guarantee this, I'm going to be contacting all the stations I work with, and hopefully they'll work with this guy and really double all of our income.
No, that'd be great, man. I mean, that's the real trick at this. People at home that listen don't understand that we're taking our time out of our week every week, and it's no one's paying us. It's not like, I've got Coca-Cola coming in and laying a big fat check on me for harassing politicians that are crooked.
It's so true. Thank God I got people like Kif Davis volunteering, and Ann Francis and Christoph Scott Moses, who volunteer to put this on each week, because we're all putting in pretty much like a 40-hour week to get the show on the air.
Yeah, it's a lot of work. I have to admit that Hart Attack, I started off just Hart yelling at people hour, and now it's evolved into something more, and it takes a lot more time to prepare, research, get your facts right.
Exactly. Yeah, booking guests, scheduling guests, locating guests, and then doing the research on the guests to do a decent show. It's a lot of work.
Mm-hmm. It's funny. My wife is telling me now that the LAPD is currently looking for 4 armed men in our neighborhood. So she's got the front door locked.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, how nice. And on Sunday, they busted a guy, a gangbanging dude running around with a gun. 4 blocks down the street from my house. I saw it while I was walking my dog.
Well, let me ask you guys. We got Keith up there in Portland, and we have you in L.A. I'm here in Vegas. With what's been going on this week over there in Ferguson, Missouri, okay, have you noticed any local protests or demonstrations against this?
Yeah, there's been a couple here in Portland.
I haven't seen any here in L.A. I'm sure there are, but me personally, I've been involved in, this weekend we were at Scare LA shooting for American Horrors with Count Crazy Greg. Friday, I'm at a lard factory where the Orphan Killer 2 is shooting, and the killer has, stolen my car, and so he's got people he's killing with my car. So I've been involved with a lot of, movies and shooting and haven't had a lot of time. I'm not really on top of what's happening with this shooting at all, actually. I don't know that much about it.
Yeah, up here in Portland, they had a protest yesterday at Pioneer Square downtown, and then they had one over by the police precinct in northeast Portland on Killingsworth, and I know they're having another thing tomorrow. It's set up by this guy Jesse Spoonberg, and actually his mother works at this place called Dottie's right off of Division and 119th Avenue, which is right around the corner from where I used to live. And his mother was actually shot in a robbery. It's basically like a little place that has a lot of lottery games and different stuff. And some black guy came in there and shot his mom during the robbery attempt, and luckily the bullet only went in her leg and went out the other side, and she's doing good and recovering and stuff. So, but yeah, he's a guy around here that sets up a lot of different stuff. He set up that Ferguson protest thing here in Portland yesterday at the police precinct.
What's the story? I don't know exactly what happened. My wife says there's some other video release saying he was some robbery suspect. What happened in Virginia? Or it's in St. Louis, right? What happened?
In Missouri.
Okay.
Hey, you know what? Before you start, there's an informational picket line against police brutality in Memphis, Tennessee. It's coming on Monday, August 18th, 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. It's in front of 201 Poplar, Memphis Police Headquarters. And this is put on by the Memphis Black Autonomy Federation, which is Lorenzo Kumbawa Irvin, who hooked us up. Keith hooked us up with him. And his email address is organize.the.hood@gmail.com. Former Black Panther for self-defense.
Nice.
Yep, and he wrote the book Anarchism and the Black Revolution, which is a really good book.
Yeah, incredible guy.
I actually met him in the early '90s, and I've seen him speak a couple times. And one of the times I actually videotaped it in Boulder, Colorado. And he's got a pretty interesting story. And he hijacked a plane after taking on the local KKK and the racist police department and stuff, and getting roughed up by the police a bunch of times. And they basically told him they were going to kill him, so he kind of got all scared and hijacked the plane. And yeah, he's got a really interesting story, though.
Yeah, Castro gave him up and put him on a plane, a commercial flight to the Czech Republic. You know, he gets off the plane over there. He thought he was going to get asylum, but he had no idea. You know, no one knew what he was doing there. So they put him in jail over there. Then the U.S. Embassy grabs him, right? He escapes from the U.S. Embassy cops, and he's running down the street in the Czech Republic. They were going to shoot at him, but they said, no, we better not.
Jesus.
It's an amazing story. So they try and run him over with a car, and this guy, he outruns the car. It's like one thing after another. But they finally got him. And it's a fascinating story, man. It's up on the Opperman Report YouTube channel. Great guy, 70 years old, man. He's out there still fighting, still organizing, man. I gotta take my hat off to him. But Keith, why don't you tell Hart about what's going on with this Ferguson stuff?
Yeah, basically the police shot this one unarmed guy, and now there's a lot of riots going on and civil unrest and stuff.
Keith, did they shoot him in the back? Did they shoot him in the front? Where did they shoot him from?
I'm not sure exactly where they shot him.
I can tell you what happened. What happened was the cop backed up the car. The cop saw these two 18-year-old kids walking down the street, and they were jaywalking in the middle of the street. And the cop told them to get on the sidewalk, right? Then the cop, and they said, oh, yeah, we're getting on the sidewalk, cool it. So the cop backs up the car and tries to open up the door and hit him with the door, and then he yokes him, and he's like yoking him through the window.
So wait a minute, this gentleman, the police officer tried to back his car up into the perp?
Yeah. Yeah.
What was he thinking? I'm going to back my car up. Most cars got cameras on them.
No, not in Ferguson, Missouri. They have no cameras on the cars, okay?
So he felt like he could get away with it, huh?
Well, get this, man. It's 66% black in that town. There's only 20,000 people who live in that town. There's 53 cops and only 3 black cops.
I got family in St. Louis. I got friends and people in St. Louis. Some of my girls that used to roll through the comic conventions with me are there. I've been to St. Louis. I'm from Chicago. So I've been around St. Louis. I understand that town.
Yeah, this is a fascinating story because what happened was then they left this kid's body in the street like all day long. They shot him in the afternoon and they left him there all day long. And then
that's a statement, man. And they didn't put a sheet on him or nothing, did they?
Later on, they did. But then they didn't even
Later on, they did.
Yeah, no, but wait a second. They didn't even put him in an ambulance to get rid of the body. They put it in the back of an SUV.
Dude,
you gotta watch this.
They just left him on display like a trophy, basically. Yeah. And
I will say this though, Ed. When my girlfriend was murdered, they didn't put her in the back of an ambulance. They threw her in the back of a damn station wagon.
Really, I didn't know that.
It was disturbing, yeah. And they put that on the news.
Really?
Yeah. I actually got in trouble because I threatened to maim a news director in Champaign, Illinois, for their coverage of my girlfriend's murder. And thankfully, the threat worked. They changed their coverage. Well,
with this kid, then the neighborhood made a memorial in the street because it was right in the middle of the street where
that's terrible. That's really awful.
No, dude, wait till you hear this, man. The cops drove over the memorial. Okay.
What?
Yes, man. Then they didn't interview any of the witnesses that were with the kid who saw, the kid had his hands up when he got shot. He got shot in the back running away, too. Okay.
So he was shot in the back and he's unarmed?
Yes, man, yeah. So
what the hell?
It's a tiny little neighborhood. Everybody knows everybody. So the whole town shows up to start protesting. The first night they got a little out of hand, okay? They did burn down the quick stop, it's called, something like that, or the quick trip, it's called over there.
Right.
And they burned it down, okay? And they did a little bit of looting. But the cops went in there. They got the county cops came in. Cops, you didn't know their names and stuff like that, whatever. They went in there with giant tanks, military tanks, and snipers, and all this kind of stuff. They were lobbing tear gas. Al Jazeera was there with a setup with their cameras and stuff like that. The cops lobbed tear gas and rubber bullets at Al Jazeera, then took apart their
reporters.
Yeah, dude, man, you got to see this.
What are they doing? What do they think it's?
They have LRAD electronic warfare weapons and
and they arrested two. They arrested two reporters.
Wait a minute, what's up with the snipers too? It seems like lately we heard reports of there's like the whole confrontation over the gentleman who was trying to get his cattle fed on public land, and they said, oh no, it's about an endangered turtle, when it was really about Harry Reid's deal for Chinese wind farms, and they had snipers there too. Why do law enforcement all of a sudden have snipers everywhere? Because snipers are about killing people. They're not all about apprehending criminals. A sniper is only there for one solution, which is deadly force.
Well, yeah, in Missouri just this weekend, too, the cops were constantly pointing their laser sights at the protesters. Women with babies. Dude, you have no idea how bad this was. They arrested two reporters, a Huffington Post reporter and a Washington Post reporter in a McDonald's. It's on video. They have all this.
Is that the one where the reporter got slammed into a wall in a soda machine?
Yeah, that's it.
What is wrong with... You know what it is these corporations that own our government think that they've won. They think that we, the people, are done. They think that we're easily cowed. And they're wrong, because all social change comes from the street. It comes from us, the people.
Well, they backed off, okay? And then they appointed a new cop in charge. And then, he made nice with the crowd and stuff like that, and then they backed up all. So it's been nice the past couple of days, but so much of this, I wonder how much is a psyop, because, with the whole Trayvon Martin thing, I was involved in that case a bit, okay? And the thing is that with Trayvon Martin, is that the people who we count on, the people with the balls to march in the street and to defy authority, were there marching in the street demanding that their right of self-defense being taken away from them. And they were demanding that their right of a jury trial be taken away from them. It was a total...
That's insane.
It was a total manipulation of the movement, or whatever you want to call it. And
that's what they do. They come in and they co-op a valid movement. They spend money. They hire fake cyber trolls. They got their sock puppets. They spend their money, and they think they've got it won.
Well, look at Al Sharpton. The guy's totally co-opted. Now it's all over the place that the guy's an FBI informant. I've been saying that for years. The guy's been totally co-opted for years, since the 80s.
Totally. And
a lot of times too, like people don't know this, but during riot situations and stuff, a lot of the people that are actually doing a lot of the rioting and the looting sometimes are government agents and stuff like that. Like up in Canada, they had all these black bloc anarchist protests, and it turned out that a lot of the so-called anarchists were actually cops, and a lot of they totally got confronted by other protesters for being cops and stuff, and then it later came out in the news that they were cops, and that was during all the G8 stuff. And so a lot of the time, a lot of the rioting and other stuff, I'm sure some of it is actual, like, real people that are just pissed off and want to go riot and stuff like that and show their outrage. But sometimes a lot of the stuff that happens actually is all different government agencies, and with the rise of the mercenary army that are embedded into our culture at this point too. You know, you could easily see some people like Blackwater or G4S or some of these other guys going in and creating situations to cash in on the whole crisis. You know, so.
Well, back in the 70s and 80s, when I was with the Yippies, we would see people would come to the organization meetings beforehand, you know, and they would just be troublemakers, you know, and then later on at the protest, we would see them with the cops. We would see it. We saw this. This happened over and over again. One time, there was a guy, it was at one of the marijuana Mayday parades. I guess it was around 77, 78. And one of these guys, these troublemakers, who we knew from the meetings, ran up on stage. He punched Dana Beal. And his face got all bloody, his teeth got all bloody. And then later on, he was over there with the cops. It was obvious he was one of the cops.
Yeah, I've met Dana Beal a couple times. I know he was kind of instrumental in getting the whole Ibogaine thing going.
Yeah.
Like to get people off of heroin with Ibogaine, which is the Iboga root from Africa and stuff. And now they have a bunch of clinics like that down in Central America and Belize and Mexico and all over Europe and stuff. And it's actually like a really good miracle cure for people that are like strung out on various drugs, from heroin to cocaine to alcohol and meth and all kinds of other stuff. And
so you think that really works?
That
you think that stuff really works?
Yeah, I actually have heard from other people that have actually used it and got off it, and I know Dana Beal actually, he was strung out for quite a while, and
yeah,
he got off of heroin by using that Ibogaine, and I've seen him at a bunch of different marijuana rallies and like the DC Smoke-In and other hemp festivals all over the East Coast and stuff, where he did a lot of talking about that stuff. And
yeah, he
was
recently
actually
he just did some time. He just did some time for possession of marijuana. I think it was 200 pounds, and he was in there for about a year and a half, 2 years. He must be out by now, I'm sure, because this was going on for a while. But if you look up the whole Dana Beal, I don't know how to pronounce that. I always thought it was Ibogaine, something like that. But that stuff, if you look up the Staten Island Ibogaine Project, it talks about Fred Gottbetter, who was a hero of mine, a best friend of mine when I was growing up in Staten Island and going down to Yippie headquarters all the time. Fred Gottbetter was, a mentor to me. He was at the time, he was the Yippie spokesman. And he's mentioned in that the Ibogaine Project on Staten Island. If you look that up, it all talks about Fred. And he actually died of his heroin addiction, ultimately. But for a while there, he also claimed that he had a cure or a healing with the I thought it was pronounced Ibogaine.
It's Ibogaine.
Yeah, Ibogaine.
It's like
yeah.
IBO. And then GAINE. I'm actually, trying to do something here in the future here in Portland, Oregon, to maybe start some Ibogaine thing, but I'm not going to do an illegal Ibogaine clinic or anything like that. But up here in Portland, Oregon, we have ayahuasca churches.
Oh, really?
Which and the Oregon State Constitution is actually really good, and it's like one of the strongest constitutions in the United States of America. And so people here in Oregon, they fought for the right to use ayahuasca.
Have you ever tried
under their church and stuff? It's called the Church of the Sacred Rose. They have one here in Portland, Oregon, and I think they have another one down like in Medford or Ashland area too. But
have you ever tried that?
No, I've actually tried DMT before, but not ayahuasca.
Well, let me ask you a question.
I do know friends friends of mine that have gone down to Peru and stuff like that and hang out with medicine men and stuff in the Amazonian jungle, and they've done that stuff multiple times.
Because we were talking
jungle drugs. Yummy, jungle drugs.
So real quick, man, we were talking about the Dana Beal, right? Now, you know the whole story about the Popa pot, Mickey Caesar, right? And his story, correct?
Yeah.
I know I don't.
Mickey Caesar was
the
the Popa
Pope
pot.
smoked dope. Got the song by David Peel and the Lower East Side. And
yeah, but Mickey Caesar used to run Dial-A-Joint back in New York City on the Lower East Side. Yeah,
Dial-A-Joint.
Yeah, the phone number was 777 cash. But the thing is, it was right next door to Yippee headquarters. I think it might have been like a partition that was cut off. He had his own private door. It was a little tiny little place where he lived. But now you know the story about him, man. He was an open member of NAMBLA and a pedophile, and right next door to Yippee headquarters, and must have. I can't believe he was getting his marijuana from somewhere else. Can you?
yeah, and he was also praised multiple times in High Times and a lot of these other legalization things like that. But I didn't actually hear about that till like later on in my life about all his sordid history stuff, and I kind of
okay, I can tell you,
just like
because I've been there, to his house, and there was a bumper sticker right on his front door that said NAMBLA. He was a member of NAMBLA.
Damn.
Oh yeah.
On your front door? I can't wait to have man-boy love. On your front door?
Yeah.
There's actually that guy Peter Lamborn Wilson, who also goes by the name Hakeem Bey, and he wrote that Temporary Autonomous book, which is pretty popular. He was a member of NAMBLA too. He's pretty well known anarchist and stuff like that, but not. So, but he kind of took his anarchism in a whole different way, he's all into the whole concept of sexual anarchy, and which is a whole nother form of whatever, But there's definitely a certain amount of people within the underground that are involved in all that stuff, like Dennis Perone, the guy who got weed legalized in California. He got busted with child porn on his computers, and he's like the main author of Proposition 215.
Yeah, I'm not up on the pot advocate stuff. I'm just not. I wasn't really a pothead guy growing up,
Yeah, I've smoked weed my entire life, basically, since I was a little kid. So I've been on the front lines of marijuana activism, and I've actually met Dennis Perone multiple times, and he was actually friends with my mom, but then I found out a bunch of different stuff about him, through he was also like really good friends with Harvey Milk, and
right.
He has a thing in a Castro district called the Castro Castle, and he did the whole Castro Street Fair thing, which recently, like a few years back, they were actually selling bondage gear aimed at like little kids, like 3 years old, called fetish tots. If you want to look up something sick, just go and just put fetish tots, and I think the paper that covered it is called SF Gate, which does a lot of reporting in the Bay Area. But yeah, I'm sure if you guys are in front of your computer right now, you could just put in fetish tots, and you'll see what I'm talking about. But
and you're saying tots like TOTS, like tater tots, like fetish tots.
Yeah, and it has like all these like village people type outfits that are geared towards little kids.
Yeah, I've actually seen that, man. And another one too is Allen Ginsberg, who used to come down to Yippie headquarters as well, who is a notorious. I didn't know it at the time, but now I know he's a pedophile.
Really, I didn't know that.
See, a lot of people don't know. He's actually.
That makes me feel bad because I was recently compared to his writing.
You know what, man? I was
by
a
a local artist, and I'm like, oh no!
I was a fan of his poetry too, and I didn't know it at the time. But there's actually a movie that's on YouTube called Chicken Hawks that has him as an old man openly talking about his love for little boys.
Whoa!
Yep.
Whoa! Damn!
And a lot of people basically just blow this stuff off because they're like, well, he's a great author. He's done this, he's done that, or whatever. Like same with Dennis Perron. He's still in high times and all that stuff. They still praise him as a hero, even though he got busted with child porn on his computers. And
well, here's
the
the
way
thing:
he got off basically is he's involved with the whole power structure in the Bay Area, and he knows a lot of the judges, and he knows a lot of the powerful people, and he basically just got off because of that,
Keith, he was discovered with child porn on his computer. Was he discovered with any kids? Because it seems to me, under the auspices of the ongoing COINTEL slander programs with COINTELPRO, how hard would it be to just place this on this guy's computer?
Yeah, these guys are open.
Oh, yeah, it'd be pretty easy to do that to anyone, including any of us. But
yeah, it could happen to any of us, man.
The thing is he was good friends with Harvey Milk, and Harvey Milk was a notorious boy lover, and, used to have a fetish for little runaway street kids. And, I actually know someone who was picked up by Dennis Perron, who used to be a street kid in the Bay Area and stuff. So I actually know someone personally that was picked up by him, and I found out about it about 5 years ago or so from someone who I know from Portland, Oregon and stuff. And also there's this guy Harry Hay who is considered like the godfather of the gay rights movement. And he marched with NAMBLA and stuff during the gay pride parades. And Dennis Perron actually rented a room to Harry Hay, who's like the godfather of the gay rights movement, and was a member of NAMBLA. And he rented a room at the Castro Castle to Harry Hay at a discount rate. And you can just put Harry Hay and Dennis Perron and Castro Castle and do a Google search for that, and you'll see even in the way I actually found this out was in a gay news website actually that was talking about that
let me throw a couple of things out there.
Dennis Perron saves the day. He's helping out Harry Hay, who's all bankrupt and can't afford to live anywhere, so he's giving them a place at reduced rent. So,
in New York
he's
City,
obviously hanging out with NAMBLA members and people like that. And then he has child porn on his computers. And then he basically got off by saying, like, well, there's guests that come to my hotel or whatever, and that's like the guest computer too. So anyone could have been viewing and downloading child pornography onto it. So I don't. And
you don't download child porn on accident. Listeners at home who are hearing this, you don't accidentally download child porn. You gotta find that stuff. It doesn't just happen to show up in your browser.
Well,
okay.
A couple of things, guys. Okay, back in New York City, when I lived in New York City, and I left there in 2000. At the Gay Pride Parade, when NAMBLA would march in, and they marched every year in the Gay Pride Parade.
What does NAMBLA have to do with being gay? It has nothing to do with being gay.
Well, but let me tell you something. They were cheered on by the crowd year after year after year. And another thing, too, I want to talk about High Times Magazine, okay? High Times Magazine was funded, Tom Forsyth, all that stuff. It was funded by Larry Flint and Hustle Publications. Okay, he made a deal with them where he bought them. It was a sweetheart deal. He would buy the magazines for cash and then resell them. So Tom Prasad and those guys from High Times had nothing to worry about how many issues they sold because Larry Flint bought every issue they printed. Now, on top of that, High Times magazine, that I know for a fact, okay, that one of the guys who later on, he maybe, I don't know now who the editor is right now, who the main guy over there is, but I know for a fact that a guy that at one time was the main guy over there was a police DEA informant because he was involved in marijuana deals and walked out, and everybody else in that room got busted but him. That's the stuff I know for a fact personally.
Interesting how that works, huh?
Yeah.
Well, a lot of the, underground media and alternative media has always been infiltrated by government agencies, dude. Like, going back for a long time, There's
that's the way you do it, Keith. You find something successful. It's hard to build something successful. It is hard to build a successful radio show that captures the zeitgeist, and so it's easier for them to come in and marginalize it by co-opting it and buying it out. You send in Trojan horses, they cough up money, everybody likes money, and then away we go, off to the races, and next thing you know, Bill Maher is bought and paid for Rebel on HBO. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do know what you're saying.
Yeah.
And it's happening all around us. And guys like us, the question is when does one of us get bought out? As soon as we start to get too popular and start to influence people too much, and then they come up and they try to seduce you.
I don't know, man. I think there's a lot of harassment, too. I don't know.
There is a lot of harassment. And as you know, Ed, I had stalkers and death threats. My house got robbed in Champaign, Illinois, because the local news broadcast that I was out of town for the weekend at a horror convention. Man. And the next thing you know, the news was there because somebody kicked in my doors and robbed my house. And all this was on the news before I ever even got home from L.A. Okay? All this happened because the news media engineered it.
When was that?
I'm out of town. Right? You get it? Yeah. I mean, I'm gone. I'm out of town. Does the harassment happen? Hell yeah, it happens.
When did this happen?
This happened back in Champaign, Illinois in 1992 when I graduated from college. I went off to the Fangoria Horror Convention, and I was doing the Dahmer books, and so a local news crew broadcast that I was out of town.
Right.
And then my house gets robbed, and then my house... like my door kicked in and my clothes strewn out down the driveway is on the news before I even get home from L.A.
Yeah, I was involved in the case with Sarah and Todd Palin, and my client was Shirley Tripp, the woman who was involved in prostitution with Todd Palin in Alaska. And I wound up, we did a testimony, and I was involved in a congressional investigation, congressional hearing on all that. But the same thing happened to me. Not only did they broke into my office, which was really secure, but they broke into my house too, where my dog was. So they had to have put my dog to sleep in order to get in and get out, because that dog was very, very protective.
People have been messing with my car. My car's out in the open. I drive an '83 Chevy Impala. So like somebody ransacked my car, Ed. They went through my car. I took my dog for a walk. I go out the front door. It was a short walk, so we were back sooner than we normally were. And we come back, passenger door is open, all of my things from my glove compartment's open, and it's all neatly organized on the front seat. Pens are neatly organized next to each other. The CDs, yes, I have CDs in my car because you get better audio quality. MP3s are terrible. My CDs are all laid out, which you could steal if you're a junkie and sell and make money. All my things were laid out and neatly organized on the front seat, and we caught. They were gone. There was nobody there. Since I become politically involved, more has happened to me than during Dahmer days when crazy stuff was going down, and I had a gay stalker, I had a regular stalker, my house got robbed. You know what I mean? I was being threatened by police and told, do not publish Michael Diana, or we're going to come after you for distributing obscene material across state lines. So I got involved in these issues in my neighborhood, and now all of a sudden somebody comes up on my front and screws the bulb and leaves the light bulb out. and they are messing with the speedometer of my car because it's easy to reach under the hood. And they're doing different tricks. They were stealing gas out of the gas tank. I had to buy a locking gas cap. They stole the registration off my license plate, which has never happened to me in my entire life. And I've lived in this neighborhood for 14 years. They have definitely, I've been followed around. I've been followed. I've had my phone develop the weird sounds and buzzes and clicks on my landline. All of these things have happened once I got politically involved with Hart Attack and got involved in local politics involving real estate and these bike lanes.
Yeah, we had also too the lug studs on my car. They would over tighten the lugs and snap those studs. So yeah, you know. And another thing that happened too is it never happened before, and I get a lot of I have a digital forensic laboratory, okay, and so we get evidence from all over the country from different police departments all the time. But this one case, the Sarah Palin case, when the package came, there was a little pinhole hole in the package where you could stick a little, pencil camera.
You get a pinhole camera in there.
Pinhole camera in that. Yeah, a little pinhole camera there. Never happened before, never happened since. I get packages every freaking day. So, yeah, so this stuff does go on.
Without a doubt.
Yeah,
and the more
I actually had my place broken into multiple times, and, you know, I usually go out and take my dog on a walk and go for, you know, a half hour, sometimes even 45 minutes or so, and I'd come into my house and it'd smell like Febreze, and I don't use Febreze. I actually hate Febreze. I hate the smell of Febreze. And so, and I actually had like artwork that I did like 20 years ago or so, and I came in and I found some of my artwork was slashed up with razor blades, and all kinds of different stuff like that definitely happens. And, you know, it might not be the government, it might just be some mercenary group that you pissed off, or some local pedophile or whoever, you know.
It happened with a satanic group. Keith, the same thing happened with one of my film teams was investigating a paranormal investigation in Illinois at Ashmore Estates, and they came across and got involved in an unsolved torso murder in a small town of like 8 murders in it, and a lot of them had a satanic cult operating in the neighborhood. And my film team started having sabotage happen to them. They had somebody mail them somebody had taken the VHS tape out of a Flash Gordon movie and a commercial release, and they put in a different videotape guts of about 8 minutes of a satanic rite that then later on the producer had his house ransacked. They broke into his house and they ransacked the whole house, and they didn't steal anything. They just went through everything. But I had the tape out here in California.
Hey, you know what? That's a good point. Because it's not always COINTELPRO. It's not always the FBI.
No.
It's not. Because when I had my thing with the Sarah Palin thing, intelligence agencies from foreign countries were also trying to infiltrate us and stuff like that. One you could imagine right off the bat, you can guess who it is, and another one was one I was really surprised. It was an Asian country, you know. But it happens, man, and it's out there, and and there's other groups too, man, like the Scientologists and the Freemasons. They have intelligence groups that work for these people, just like I work for people. And it's fine.
The Vatican has its own intelligence arm, and they have the Vatican Guard or the Swiss Guard, and they're their own country state within the nation of Italy.
Wait, by the way, where the age of consent is 12 years old in the Vatican. Did you know that?
Yeah, I've got my own bone to pick with those people. I've got a real problem with the Catholic Church and how they've handled worldwide molestation cases. And in fact, I believe the Vatican is satanic. They are not for Jesus or the teachings of him.
Wait, real quick, though. Now, I had a guest on last week, Steve Wick, who wrote the book Bad Company about the Roy Radin murder, and that involved the Cotton Club movie. And
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, right. Okay. Now, the guys who killed Roy Radin were these guys that are known. Everyone talks about them. They say that they were Larry Flint's bodyguards. Okay, and they were involved in Satanism, all kind of stuff too, right? But they were involved in another murder. These guys were hired to murder this woman who was a 250-pound black prostitute who ran a phone sex operation, right? Now, it's a fascinating story, man.
Oh, it makes me wonder, what did she hear that she shouldn't have heard?
Well, who knows? Because she was kind of stalking this guy too. She was vandalizing his car, and she would call the guy who hired these hitmen, right? Mm-hmm. She would, and we have the phone records. She would call him up 50 times in a row, 60 times in a row, then call the Vatican and talk on the phone to the Vatican for 20 minutes, hang up, and call this guy back another 30 times. And there's dozens of calls to the Vatican, man. Explain it. And it's just like an afterthought. The police were puzzled why she called the Vatican. What the hell went on there, man?
Nice investigation. What are you guys, in the Glitter Dome?
I don't know if I remember.
Larry Flint bodyguards, they were all linked in with the Process Church of Final Judgment, though, too, right?
Yep, that guy, Menser, yeah. There's pictures of him with a gun with a silencer on it in front of a pentagram. See, Steve Wick last week, he didn't want to go down that road, okay? And if he doesn't want to, that's fine. I'm going to bring in other guests to go into all that. But
that's a conversation you have with him off the air, so he's not put at risk.
Nah, not even off the air. He won't. I'll bring in other guests. I have no problem with that. We're going to cover that story from end to end, ultimately, on the Opperman Report, no doubt. Because that's one of my big topics, is all that kind of
Satanism
stuff.
That's being hidden by the public?
Yep.
From the public?
Yep. And the Process Church, Son of Sam, all that kind of stuff, man.
Even more so going to the Franklin affair with Dick Bryan.
Guest, too?
Who?
You should try and get on Shane Bugbee. You know who he is, right?
No, don't bring on Shane. Don't bring on Shane. He's a charlatan.
He's got some pretty... Have you heard his...
Keith, I've known Shane for a long time, and I could say some things about him, but I won't go on the air to talk about it. This person's a charlatan. Watch your back with this guy. Watch your back. I'm warning you, Keith. I've known him since the early 90s. I've been victimized by this person. This person is on... No, he's on my list. You don't get it. No, Keith, you don't get it. He's on my list.
Uh-oh. And here we are. That's on the whole
board. He's on my list. Do you understand? He's on my enemies list. He's on the list. This is a horrendously evil person who steals from people, ruins people's lives. He's a bottom feeder. He is a human piece of garbage that steals from people at their worst. All right, I've known this guy for a long time, and I could get a lot more ugly here because I've been victimized by this man, Keith, and he's on my list. Do you understand me? Okay. He's on my list.
I just want to make a disclaimer that this is in no way...
Well, I'm glad I'm not on your list.
Keith, if you start working with him, I'm going to have to stop working with you. He's on that list.
Well,
you understand me?
Let's talk about this off the air, okay?
Oh, I'm just saying that I'm just talking...
I cannot let this man's name be brought up without me speaking out. This is a piece of human scum, and he's part of the satanic network.
Okay,
right?
but he's not here to defend himself, and the opinions of Hart Fisher is no opinions of the Opperman Report or CJMartin's.com or any kind of stuff. But Hart, hey, listen, you got an opinion.
That is exactly correct.
Yeah,
he just walked into a can of worms he didn't know about on the air.
Okay, and you know what? We should talk about this off the air, and we'll get into it, and we'll figure out what's going on.
You guys should be warned. I should warn both you guys off the air what you're dealing with. I'm very serious.
No, I've never heard of the guy.
You have not heard me get this upset till now.
I've never heard of the guy, so... Hey, but you know what? We got Christian Wallace here.
I just heard his little interview with the Process Church of Final Judgment when he was trying to set up the thing with the best friends people and stuff. It's a pretty interesting, his little interview with those guys.
And he's a bottom feeder. You got to watch out for that gentleman. He's a serious bottom feeder that victimizes people. I'm not
endorsing the man at all by any means, because I've only met him one time with... Mike Diana one time, and that's about it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know what else, man? In this business, there's so many people that we can all run around exposing. You know, we can make it a full-time job, and really, you know.
Now, this involves my wife recovering from cancer in the hospital. This involves some really personal, ugly stuff.
No, I got you,
really ugly shit. Damn it! I swore on the radio. I'm very sorry. I have to stop talking about Shane. I get really upset.
Yeah, we got to watch that. Okay, hey, we got Christian Wallace though tonight, man.
Hey, how you guys doing?
Hey, bro, what's up? Hey, Christian Wallace got a new show called Incoronation. It's on CJMarsRadio.com. It's on Wednesday nights at 6 p.m.
Yeah, your time, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard.
There you go, my man. Hey, so what do you got to contribute tonight, my friend?
Well, I was just listening, and in general, really, interesting stuff. And I'm right with you with I think earlier you were talking about the National Geographic. The drug stuff really gets me going because, I do work in that field, and I've seen it ravage a lot of people. And you talked about, selling out of the back door. And here we had the OxyContin scourge that really, with the pain clinics down here, that was just awful and scandalous. And a lot of people died before 2009 because then they changed the way that they were, they had set up their the availability, basically. A lot of stuff changed. It's a topic for a whole show. But the other thing was, I always knew from working in that field, I said one day, when I saw reality TV starting up, I said one day they're just going to put straight up shows about junkies on the air, and it'll be called, drugs or crack or coke or whatever. And on the National Geographic show, I think it was Hart that was saying it, they got shows where people are just like, yeah, the high's still good, man, and that's all it's about. And then it's it is the most base form of, they just follow around a crackhead, on his daily adventures to go find dope. And
I'll tell you
what
something.
it does is it's like an ad for...
It is. Because back in the 70s, okay, no one knew in New York City what exotic marijuana was, or Sensimilia or Hawaiian pot. None of this. No one knew what it was back in those days. But 60 Minutes did a show on Hawaiian pot and how it was $300 an ounce and all this kind of stuff like that. It was so great. Oh, the best stuff in the world. No one knew what the stuff was. But once they did that show, the next day, everybody wanted Hawaiian. Sensimilia, the seedless, blah, blah, blah. It was an advertisement for this stuff, too. And I've seen this before in other areas with stuff. This is, and you can't, and even Hart would know this because that's how the media works. You can't hire press agents and stuff. Even if you're a drug dealer and you have a new product, you can hire press agents to get your press to get this stuff out there. That's just how it works.
And the press, how they work it, too, is they report the deaths. And junkies would be like, oh, my God, these bags of heroin are killing people. We need to go get those because they're strong. That's how they think. Crazy.
Yeah, because a lot of junkies actually want to die, but they don't want to commit suicide. They want to die through overdosing, too,
Yeah, the whole thing is suicidal, yeah.
I want to say it like this because I just want to make my position clear. Like, I'm of two minds when it comes to the marijuana and the medicinal marijuana. I'm a health freak and everything, and, I've been 230 pounds and, super athletic, and, I've been in both sort of, had one foot in each world, and I understand why, there's a good case to be made for people that have cancer and AIDS, and, there's very valid reasons to make marijuana available. But at the same time, like I said, I'm kind of two minds about it, only because it is carcinogenic to an extent because you do have to smoke it. But at the same time, there's a lot of research that I think if you're healthy and you don't need to, more power to you. And if, unfortunately, you're sick and that's the only thing that helps you, then it should be made available for that, and it should be like a state's right.
Well, there are ways to take this drug without having to smoke it. You could vaporize it. You could get edibles. In fact, you could use them as topicals. In fact, with arthritis pain and joint problems, they find that the topicals work very well, and smoking it isn't just about the cancer from smoking cigarettes. All it has to do with all the extensive additives that are put in there, the ammonia, all the other drugs and poisons that are put into a cigarette that make it cancerous. Whereas when you smoke cannabis, you don't have those additives. If you're lucky. I mean, there are some very unscrupulous people out there that are doing all kinds of things to make the cannabis give you the old high. But there are ways that you could imbibe this that don't have the same kind of cancerous effects. It's not just about smoking. Vaporizing is a way that's come a long way, actually. They've figured out many ways to vaporize the contents of the leaf, and you're getting water vapor, so you're not burning it, so you don't have those cancerous issues.
Sure, you're absolutely right.
One of the big problems about legalizing, too, actually, is Monsanto is going to take over the weed industry. And if you know anything about Uruguay and how they recently legalized marijuana there, who was behind that was Monsanto and the George Soros Foundation. So I can guarantee you, in Uruguay right now, they're already working on genetically modified marijuana. And, you know, even as an advocate for marijuana and someone who's fought for medical marijuana rights and even recreational marijuana rights for a long time, at this point, I really don't want to see it fully legalized, because then Monsanto's just going to get their dirty little paws in it, and you know, once they start tinkering with the genetics, like most people don't know right now that 90% of all tobacco is genetically modified, and you know they can put viruses and different things into this. Like in Africa right now, they're putting like malaria vaccines into potatoes and stuff like that. Well, they could, you know, if you can put vaccines into potatoes, then you could also breed diseases into potatoes too. So
not only that, but Monsanto.
Weed.
More than that, Keith, Monsanto's known for taking its copywritten and trademarked seeds and allowing them to escape into the wild and allowing them to escape into other people's farms. And then what they'll do is they'll come along and somebody will be farming and not know that their corn has been genetically hijacked, and the Monsanto will say, look, we can prove that this corn's ours, never mind that we let it get into your property, never mind that we let it blow out into the wild, never mind that it's everywhere now, we own it, so therefore we get a piece of the action. They're the true evil going on right
like
now.
Organic farmers and stuff,
yeah,
they're having their crops infected with that stuff, who have worked for 20, 30 years to have a organic product, and now their stuff's getting cross-contaminated with genetically modified garbage. So, you know,
and let's really break it down. Let's break it down for the neophytes. You know, people at home might not know this, but one of the things about marijuana is there's a natural anxiety key in your brain, and marijuana replicates that genetic key exactly, almost as if it was created, and it helps you with a lot of anxiety problems. Now, when you've got a crop like that you could just grow at home, that anybody, the reason they call it weed is it'll grow anywhere, and it doesn't require a lot of water. You can be growing this in your backyard, and in my mind, that is the true threat to the medical establishment that wants to get you addicted to a pill, and then they could run you around because you're a junkie now.
Yeah, but you want to know what? I stopped smoking marijuana because I smoked years and years ago, because it was making me paranoid, making me agitated. I stopped enjoying it.
Or were you already paranoid and it just let you...
What are you talking about me?
Right?
Are you in my head?
You were already paranoid, and all it did was lead you back to yourself.
You know what? I don't know about that, but it became unpleasant as it got stronger and stronger. Because you got to remember, I started smoking back when Colombian pot, you know, a Lumbo, you know, $300 a pound, you know, brown, you know, Colombian pot, you know, and then when there's, you know, this sticky green indoor grown pot you could throw up against the windshield would stick on the window. You know, when that stuff came around, I just couldn't handle it.
Well, it's getting stronger all the time.
That's
you know,
what I hear.
Getting stronger and
I
stronger.
can't imagine. Yeah, and I can't imagine, to tell you the truth. Really?
Well, I got my medical marijuana card myself, and I don't smoke all day long, but I do smoke pretty much every day. So, and it helps me out with anxiety and different stress issues, and also with stomach issues and stuff. And it's definitely a good plant overall. And you know, a lot of kids that have epilepsy and stuff, they're actually, you know, getting marijuana tincture these days, and they'll go from having like 300 seizures in a month to having one or two and things like that. So it's definitely got its place as medicine, and it's always been used as medicine by a lot of different cultures. And you know, I've been to Jamaica and stuff, and a lot of people there that don't even smoke it recreationally, a lot of them have some in their medicine cabinet just for stomach ailments and different things too. So
yeah, it was definitely good for my stomach. I'll admit that. But for the rest of me, I quit for a reason. I didn't like it. It got to the point I just didn't like it anymore. But listen, guys, it's getting late, and I got to call into Shake and Wake. Is a brand new station. Yeah, I know. Yeah, right. Those guys, you guys should call over there with me. But Shake and
Wake.
Right
after the marijuana segment.
Yeah, no. Listen, they're really cool guys, really cool people. Rick and Annie, they started their own station tonight. Tonight's the debut, you know. And I'm gonna have a show over there on Thursday nights. And Hart, I'm gonna talk to them about you if you want to play your podcast over there. I'm sure they would take you, okay? Because you got good stuff going on. And Chris Wallace.
And the only thing we want to make sure of is, you know, since Jackalope Radio is a real radio network, we play a lot of licensed songs. So we want to make sure whoever we syndicate with, their proper licensing going on. So the music that we play is okay.
Yeah, they won't, but I got other people I can talk to you about, okay, that pay for that licensing. So I'm gonna hook you up, dude. Okay? And Christian Wallace, you're gonna call over there too?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
If my throat holds out, I'm sick. I'm under the weather. That's all.
All right. Well, let's smoke some marijuana, man. You guys got to be pot for Chris here, man. We need to fix him up. He's sick.
Well, if it's a cold, you need some more vodka to clear out the viruses from your throat. They can't handle the booze. When I used to do comic conventions, I did fine when I was drunk off my booty, but when I went sober, I always got sick.
See? That's why I never get sober.
That might be what it is. And I want to make one last statement about the pot, is that I definitely don't think anybody should be put in prison, you know, for, possession of marijuana, you know, especially non-violent, you know, drug offenders. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. That's a whole other story.
Oh, yeah.
Private has never killed anyone except maybe by them falling asleep at the wheel or something like that.
One time I dropped a bail on a guy's head, man.
Can't overdose on it.
All right, Keith, when you want to say goodnight and give people your PayPal again one more time, then we'll let Hart Fisher go on and give his plugs. And Christian Wallace, you can plug your show, and then we'll go call up Shake and Wake.
Yeah, you can use my friend's PayPal account. It's angelsofdeath.com@gmail.com.
Hart?
All right, guys, watch American Horrors for free 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You could download the filmon.com app for free. Watch on your iPhone, your iPad, your smart device, whatever the hell it is. If you can get Wi-Fi signal, you could be watching the best damn horror channel in the entire world for free.
Chris?
Awesome. And my show's on 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Information Radio, with me, Christian Wallace.
CJMarsRadio.com. I want to thank Cindy Jean-Pierre, who's the coolest radio show owner, station owner that I've ever met. Thank you for all the time and everything you do for us, Cindy. Thank you very much. I want to thank Kif Davis, who is the coolest producer I've got. And I got two really cool producers, Kif. Okay? I got Ann Francis, who is super cool and gorgeous. And I got Christoph Scott Moses, who's an artist and a cool guy and a technical guy. But I love you, Keith, man. I thank you for everything you do for the show.
Right on, man. Thanks a lot for having me and Hart. And I'll definitely be talking to you here pretty soon again and suggesting a bunch more gas story and stuff.
Always, man. Thank you very much. And Hart Fisher, thank you very much, man, for coming on. And let's talk during the week, and I'll talk to you about some stations that I think would really love to carry your stuff.
Hell yeah, and let's schedule out the time for when you're going to appear on Hart Attack as a guest. I'd love to talk about your background and what's going on in your life before you became a radio show host.
Oh, sure. Oh, I get it, man. I'll tell you everything. All my secrets. I'll tell you where all the bodies are buried. All right, Pacific West Bamboo, 503-839-8126, Demroots at oppermail.com. You can find her on Facebook, Pacific West Bamboo, your number one source for timber construction and craft-grade bamboo poles, plants, and products. They specialize in eco-friendly, reclaimed wood products for the home and garden, located in Portland, Oregon. They servicing the Northwest for over 10 years. They can be reached at 503-839-8126. And they can and do ship nationwide. InfinityHomePlans.com. That's Mike Gray. Check out Infinity Home Plans and Design Services, your resource for 3D and 2D draftsman services. They offer a multitude of products, including stock home plans, 2D digital drawing sets, 3D models, renderings, and more. EmailRevealer.com, the home of the online infidelity investigation. If you think your boyfriend's cheating on you, give me his email address and we'll trace it back to online dating websites. Okay, the Revolucion Mexicana. Okay, I love this group here. There's a group of Mexican women in this village called Guerrera in Mexico. It's a state in Mexico. They have a video where you can learn how to make authentic Mexican jewelry. They sell their book on Amazon.com. I'm going to have the link up on the website, the OppermanReport.com. Their website is Revolucion, REVOLUCION Mexicana-MX / wetback-world, okay? And that's where they